Hello, hello everybody. Hey there everybody, it's Mike DiLisio. Welcome one and all to the Dice Tower Midwest Annex. Yes, that's right, the Dice Tower Midwest Annex. You are here with me, your host, Mike DiLisio, coming to you live for 3 hours. I've got 3 hours with you tonight, and I have no confidence that you can see or hear me right now. So I'm going to hopefully get some feedback from the lovely live chat we have here. Yeah? And then once I feel confident that I'm somewhat able to be seen and heard, we're going to get rocking and rolling. I see lots of hellos, and so that's a good sign. You can see me. Can you hear me? We can hear and see you, Kabuki Kid says. That's fantastic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is a joy to be here. Thank you so much for coming with me to just outside of Indianapolis, Indiana, what I'm calling the Dice Tower Midwest Annex. I do think it's a little bit odd, and maybe, I don't know, is purposeful too strong of a word? I'm going to use the word. You go right from party games, you got 6-7 people sitting around a table, raucously laughing, joking, and then you come to me, sitting here alone, all by myself. Actually, Tiffany's in the next room. But here, in my studio, I'm all by myself. And I got to follow that. I couldn't have come on after like a 12-hour game of Lacrimosa, right? You had to do it. You had to do me like that. That's all right. It's fine. All right, looks like everyone can see and hear me, so that's fantastic. Hey, one thing I do want to mention, since we're starting a new stream, there's a contest. Yes, throughout this entire 36-hour gaming marathon, we've got a contest since we are sponsored by Folded Space, and we are giving away 5 20-euro vouchers to foldedspace.com. And if you want a chance to win, all you need to do is write to us at contest@dicetower.com. In the subject line, put the words Folded Space. Folded Space, and maybe you can win one of those $20 gift certificates or whatever you want to call it. Cash, money to spend at the Folded Space website. I have used Folded Space stuff. I'm a pretty big fan. All right. So, there's some people that are wondering, what's Mike going to do? What is Mike going to do? Is he going to play Final Girl? Well, look, I'm sorry, folks. I'm rocking a calyx with games behind me. I'm bringing you back. I'm bringing you back to the early 2000s. And so I'm working off of a webcam still. So my right now, my technology is a bit limited. But my enthusiasm, that's unlimited, all right? And so we're going to do a little bit of something different. I'm going to change up the vibe a little bit. We've been having some games being played, and we've been having groups of people playing games. And so what I'm going to do is a little bit different. Let me just kind of go through my order of operations to get mathematical. Here's what I'm planning to do today for my 3 hours that I'm here today. My computer is throwing things up at me. Okay, here's what I'm planning to do today. Today, I'm going to be doing a top 10, a live top 10. Yes, you heard me correctly, a live top 10. This is what we're going to be starting with, too. We're going to be starting with my top 10 game designers, and my favorite 5 games from each of those designers. Wait, Mike, you say, that's potentially 50 games. That's right. We got 3 hours to fill. So, my top 10 designers and my 5 favorite games from those 10 designers. That's the first thing I'm going to do. Then, I'm going to cut to a little bit. This is the only thing I'm doing pre-recorded over this whole 6 hours. After I do my top 10 designers, I'm going to cut to a little something that, what's the word I would use? My podcast co-host, Dan Hughes, of Dan and Cora fame. He and I have done a little something called FaceTime Face-Off. We've done a couple episodes of that. That'll be the 3rd episode. I'll show you that. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to finish up my block tonight with a live Q&A. So ladies and gentlemen, friends of all ages, get your questions together because I'm going to be answering questions with however much time I have left over. How much time will I have left over? I got no idea. I have no idea. Look, this whole thing could just come crashing down around all of us. We have no promises. I don't know what's going to happen from this lovely bubbly carbonated water beverage. This could blow up in my face. I don't know. I already opened it because I didn't want it to blow up in my face. All right. So that's the plan. That's today. Now, tomorrow I come back from noon to 3. And my plan there is I'm going to do another live top 10. What? 2 top 10s? That's right. Because recently, I don't know if you had a chance to see it, and if you didn't, I think you should. We had in the Dice Tower main studio a top 10 deck builders list that went up recently. And I was here at the Midwest Annex watching this top 10. And to say that I was, I don't know, screaming, throwing things about the Annex would be only a slight exaggeration. And so I have thoughts. I've got thoughts. I've got my own top 10 deck building games. And so I'm going to be coming to you live with that. All right. That's going to be tomorrow to start off. And then I'm going to do something that has never been done before. That's absolutely not true. I think we did it before for one of these other things. I'm doing a live review. That's right. I'm going to be reviewing World Exchangers. I'm going to be reviewing this live tomorrow. What could possibly go wrong? We'll find out. And then I'm going to be ending up I'm going to be playing, this is the only games I'm going to be playing because, again, with my technology limitations here, I'm going to be plugging in the iPad to the computer. What could possibly go wrong? And then we're going to play some games. I'm going to play some games. I'm going to play some Oink games because if you haven't seen their app, it's really good. The Oink Games app is fantastic. So that's my plan. 2 top 10s, one today, one tomorrow. A Q&A to end things today. A FaceTime Face-Off crammed in the middle like a delicious British sandwich. And then tomorrow, the top 10 live review and the Oink Games app. All right. Well, are we ready, folks? Are we ready? Are we ready for our first top 10? All right, here we go. Top 10 designers. So here we go. This is tricky because when I was doing this list, I had to keep in mind that this is going to be designers that have at least 5 games that I can choose from. All right. And that limits me to some extent. There are some designers that I'm a very, very big fan of that don't have 5 games or at least 5 games that I have played. All right. And I don't even necessarily want to mention them. I have a few in mind, but I don't want to mention them because I don't want to, give away what the list might be. But I had to limit myself to that because I wanted to kind of do this the way this format is. And so here we go. My number 10 favorite designer, Paolo Mori. Paolo Mori. I feel like Paolo Mori is one of the most underappreciated game designers out there. I don't know that a lot of people realize the games that they like are designed by Paolo Mori. And B, his games don't tend to be big, splashy titles. They just tend to be games that have legs, right? That stick around for a while, that are, solid as a rock. So here we go. My number 10, Paolo Mori, my number 10 favorite designer, Paolo Mori. And here are my top 5 favorite games from Mr. Paolo Mori. At number 5, we've got Rise of Augustus. So if you had told me that I would be this fond of a game that is essentially bingo, I'd have said, hey, maybe I will. And I do. I like this game a lot. It's a game that is very, very simple, very welcoming. It is essentially bingo, right? You are kind of pulling out things and you're looking on your little cards in front of you, and do I have that? Do I have that symbol? Oh yeah, I've got that symbol. I'm going to put that there. And then if you fill up your card, then you can score the card. Very simple game, very, very welcoming game, but it's fun. It's still fun, and I like it. My number 5 from Paolo Mori. Now, I think some people are going to be surprised that my number 4 is not higher than it is. And to be honest, it's only because I have not played it as often. I've only played it once. And that is a shame because it's a great game that I just was slow to get on board with. And that is Ethnos. Do I think this game will rise up in my estimation the more I play it? Absolutely. Absolutely, I do. This is actually getting rethemed. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this. I believe they're going to call it Archaeos Society. And it's going to essentially be Ethnos, but different without that kind of board. But it's going to be essentially the same game from what I understand. But Ethnos is a really, really fun game with some clever card play, area control type of a thing. And again, this is a game that has been in high estimation. I just hadn't had a chance to play it until recently. Chris was bugging me. You got to play Ethnos. You got to play Ethnos. You got to play Ethnos. I knew I'd want to. I knew I'd like it, but I just finally got a chance to play it. And that's why it's number 4. I think it will be higher eventually. All right. My number 3 is Libertalia. Now, I've got up here Winds of Galecrest, which it doesn't matter. I mean, some people have strong opinions, mostly about the art. I'm not going to get into that. We don't have time. We've only got 3 hours, right? But Libertalia, the core game, is spectacular. And I will say, although I am coming around, I probably do think the art in the original is better. I was a little bit, I don't know, when people were coming out so harsh against the art in Winds of Galecrest, I kind of was like, oh, it's not that bad. Well, it's not, but I probably do prefer the original art. I do like the slight mechanical changes they made to Winds of Galecrest. The tiebreaker system I like a little bit better. I like that influence or infamy or whatever that track is called. I do think that that's a nice little change to the game. But Libertalia is a very, very interactive game that has a nice wide player count. I think it goes to 6 or 7. So it's a game that is good to play with larger groups that don't want to necessarily play a party game. You have to be okay with Take That because you're getting punched in the face repeatedly in Libertalia. Also, fun fact, I'm terrible. I'm absolutely terrible at Libertalia. I don't think I've ever won. Not sure I've ever gotten close. But there you go. There's my number 3 favorite. Oh, no, that was my number 2, right? No, my number 3. Yes, my number 3. My number 2 is a more recent game from Paulo Mori. This is Blitzkrieg. As it says on the box there, World War II in 20 minutes. And it's true. It's the theme, from a historical background. I used to be a history teacher, a high school history teacher. I like the historical theme, but this game is very much, it really is kind of themeless. The theme works for it because the idea is that you've got these different theaters of war, but what these essentially are these kind of tug of war tracks that you're fighting on. And it's a bag game where you're pulling chips out of a bag and then you're placing them onto one of these theaters of war and you're trying to gain control of these. It's a 2-player game. Such a fantastic, fantastic head-to-head game. And I don't, this is another thing. I used to say, I'm not a really big fan of hidden movement games, right? And then I started playing some hidden movement games I loved. And up until pretty recently, I used to say, you know what? I'm not really a big fan of 2-player games because I hadn't played a lot. But I'm playing 2-player games more and more, and I am finding the joy in them. I understand the appeal of games that are specifically designed for 2 players when they're done well. And this is one of them. Such a great game, so fast, so easy to teach, just a knockout. And my number 1 game, which actually shares a lot of DNA. Oh, and before we get to that, since this is live, I'm going to take advantage of this. We got some Ramones chat happening. So normally I can't, interrupt a top 10 but I'm, look, all the rules are gone. We're in the Midwest Annex. The boss isn't around. I got control. What are you going to do? Tom, I'm sorry. My phone is right here. Anyway, my number 1 game from Paulo Mori is Dogs of War. Sadly, out of print, which I don't get. I hope this one comes back into print. I have a strong sense it will, and it doesn't need the big, lavish CMON production that it has, because the minis that are in it are completely and utterly superfluous. See, I used that word live. That's dangerous. Superfluous. You don't need them. The game itself is terrific. And like I said, it has a lot of shared DNA with Blitzkrieg in that you've got these kind of distinct areas that you are fighting in. But this is a multiplayer game. It is not strictly a two-player game. As a matter of fact, I don't know that you can play Dogs of War at 2. And if you can, I don't know I'd want to. It's better at 4 or 5. So I really do hope that they reprint this. It's a game that deserves, to get a little bit more exposure. It was never a big hit. This is one of those games that I feel like has become more popular since it's gone out of print, which is a shame. But there you go. My number 1 from my number 10 designer, Paulo Mori. All right. Coming in at number 9, my number 9 favorite designer is Stan Kordonski. So here's a designer that, to me, is kind of just blown up on the scene here in the last few years. I remember playing a couple of his games a few years back, or at least a couple of his games a few years back, and being like, yeah, I like this game, and then not really connecting the designer to the game. But as I started playing more and more of his games and really liking them, that connection was made, and I was like, man, this is somebody that I am paying attention to because he has got a pretty stellar design pedigree. And here we go. Starting off number 5, I want to say either the first or the second game from Stan that I've played, Dice Hospital. So Dice Hospital is a dice drafting game, okay? Where you are running a hospital and you've got these little rooms in your hospital that are little tiles. It's a kind of a tile game. And you have to draft dice that are your patients, okay? And depending on the pips on the die, that determines kind of how sick they are. And you want to heal your patients. You don't want to let them die on your watch. A little bit dark, I guess, if you do that. There's even blood bags in the game, so, but it's silly. You can tell from the cover kind of the vibe they're going from. It's not going for like a super realistic type of a vibe. So Dice Hospital, a really nice dice worker placement type of a game, triggering off the different rooms, saving up, trying to save the life of your patients. David mentioning in the chat that they like the dice mitigation in this. I agree 100%, kind of being able to utilize those blood bags and things along those lines. And a lot of the rooms basically are allowing you to manipulate dice, things along those lines. So my number 5 from Stan Kordonski, Dice Hospital. All right, coming in at number 4, Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria. Now, there are some out there that get a little bit annoyed at the Valeria games. Tom Vassal. Because they don't really have anything to do with each other than the of Valeria. I get it. Don't sleep on this one. It's really good. It's another of a kind of a dice placement game. But this one has a little bit more of almost of a rondelle feel, where you are going around some distinct areas on the board, moving around this board, placing dice. And you have your own personal player board that you're kind of unlocking things on, getting little combos and things along those lines. This was a game that was kickstarted and was out of print after that, of course. Unfortunately, this is the nature of modern hobby games a lot of times. But it has just been I think they did a second edition, and that should show you that there is that there's kind of a call for this, that people were interested in it. And so, and also hopefully, maybe we'll be able to get some of this into retail. I would love to see that because it's a really, really good design that uses dice cleverly. This is something that I've found that Stan has been doing. Lisa, what beer am I drinking? This is water. Sparkling water. Unless you're implying that I'm acting inebriated. I hope not. I am absolutely not. Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria. Very good. All right. Number 3, and could end up getting higher based upon how much more I get a chance to play it, is the newest released game, I believe. That is Resurgence. Resurgence is a worker placement game. It is a bag building game, kind of a bag building game, with some really cool elements to it. One of them is that you kind of have, again, a player board in front of you that is kind of your bunker. And you have to clear the rubble off of the bunker to get access to rooms that give you different powers. And you're using different characters that come out of the bag that you can only place in certain areas out on the main board. And you're upgrading those workers and adding them to your bag and kind of manipulating the workers that are in your bag to be able to pull off the things that you want to pull off. A really solid game. Again, could maybe go higher, although, man, 1 and 2 are pretty big favorites of mine from Stan. So Resurgence, really good game. One that I'm looking forward to playing more. All right. Look at all you untrusting people here. You don't... There's nothing sus about this water. This water is perfectly legit. How many times can I show you the bubbly? It's simply water, folks. Look, you're not going to get this kind of entertainment from somebody who is not at 100% control of their faculties. Bubbly. All right, I'm not helping my cause here. It's water. Okay. Where was I? I have no idea where I was. All right, here we go. Number 2. My number 2 favorite game from Stan Kordonsky is Rurik, Dawn of Kiev. This is a game that the first time I saw it on the table, I thought, oh, interesting. Okay, area control game. It kind of has this kind of old school Euro look to it. And in some ways, it is an old school Euro, but in other ways, it is very not. And that is in this kind of central mechanic that Stan uses to drive the action, where you are kind of auctioning to take particular actions on the board. It might be to move, it might be to attack, things along those lines. And you're having to bid on them. But how much you bid is also going to affect your initiative on that action. So maybe you really want to attack. So you're going to bid really heavy on attack. But somebody comes in and bids less, they're going to go first. So they won't attack as strongly, but they'll attack first. However, you can use coins to kind of change that so that you can get both. It's a really, really clever system. One that I don't know that I've seen one exactly like it. And it's also a relatively quick game. Sometimes these big troops on a map type games can overstay their welcome for me. Rurik is one that is pretty snappy, plays in a relatively short amount of time, which isn't important to a lot of people, but it is to me. So yeah, Rurik, really, really good game. And my number 1, not going to be a surprise to many, Endless Winter, Paleo Americans. Wow. This game I think is fantastic. Obviously, it was my game of the year when it was released. And it is... So I'm going to just... This is going to sound like a contradiction, but it's not, because I don't want it to be. I complain a lot of times about kitchen sink type of games, right? You know, that kind of a thing that we're seeing in modern gaming a lot is, well, let's just throw every mechanism in the world out there and you know, call that a complex game. This has deck building, right? It has area control. It has tableau building. It has set collection. It's a kitchen sink game that to me doesn't feel like that. It feels so much more connected and organic than a lot of those games. This is a game that has soul to me. And I'm going to keep using these kind of esoteric words so that you can't nail them to the wall. But it's a game that feels like it has life. It does not feel like a collection of mechanisms to me, like other games that do these types of things do, if that makes sense. There have been a number of games, and I'm not going to name them because I don't want to call out other games specifically that I don't like as much, but there are games that kind of have this feel where we're going to have 4 or 5 different mechanics in there, and they just feel mechanical. Endless Winter to me does not feel mechanical. It feels elegant for what it's doing. All right. There's not an overwhelming number of actions, but every action feels important. So Endless Winter, I think, is a terrific design. And I think that the publisher did a great job, and there was great development work done on it. So just a fantastic, fantastic product altogether. That is Endless Winter. All right. How am I doing on time? See, we're going without a net, folks. We're going without a net. So if I need to speed up, I will, or, maybe we'll have to have a shorter Q&A. We'll see how it goes. All right. My number 8 favorite designer is Martin Wallace. And what's interesting to me is that you're going to see that my top 5 games from Martin Wallace are very likely not going to be anywhere near most people's favorite Martin Wallace games. I like his games that don't feel like Martin Wallace games, if that makes sense. Brass, terrific design, but it's not for me. Okay? You're going to see what I mean. All right, so he makes some weird games, and those are the games I tend to like. So here we go. My number 5 favorite Martin Wallace game is Hit Z Road, a ridiculous, silly, dice-chucking zombie game that if you put it down in front of somebody and ask them who the designer was, I don't imagine anybody would say Martin Wallace. It does not feel like a Martin Wallace game. It is just silly, fun, irreverent, a fantastic production by Space Cowboys, one of the earlier Space Cowboys games I played, where kind of the conceit of this production is that this is post-apocalyptic, obviously, and some kid is cobbling together this game that they made out of games that were strewn about. So the backs of the cards you can see used to be like Seven Wonders cards and things like that. Really, really tongue-in-cheek, a great sense of humor, and a really fun little game too that is very light and breezy. Hit Z Road, my number 5. Number 4 is Discworld, Ankh-Morpork, and someone called it out right before I put it up there. Yeah, Discworld, Ankh-Morpork. This is a very chaotic game, okay? But from what I've read, I'm certainly not a Terry Pratchett. I've read a number of the Discworld books, but I'm nowhere near an expert in Terry Pratchett. But from what I've read of the Discworld novels, I feel like they did a really nice job of incorporating that vibe into this game. This chaotic, wacky type of a game where you have, at the beginning of the game, you get a secret roll card. And that is going to determine how you win the game. And so I think it's a little strong to call it asymmetric. I mean, I guess by the strict definition of the word, you can call it that. But it really is just more like you have different win conditions. And you can usually tell a certain amount of time into the game, especially if you've played it enough to know what the different characters are. And it is kind of important to know, even if you've never played it before, it is important to know what the different characters could be so that you kind of know what to look out for. So you can usually tell this person seems to be just trying to get a lot of money. They must have the character that needs to get a certain amount of money to win the game. Oh, this person's trying to do this. They must be that character. And so not only are you trying to kind of fulfill your win condition, you're trying to keep other people from fulfilling their win condition. It is a card-driven game, very, very fun. Again, also, this is unfortunately a running theme here, out of print. Again, I don't know why. Really solid game. Oh, I'm assuming this one actually is probably an IP thing. And it was, thank you. I should mention this. Emma's doing my job for me. It was rethemed as Nancy Narking. I have not played that version of the game, but I believe that it is mechanically the same game. And if that's the case, go get that one because it's a really, really solid game. Discworld, Ankh-Morpork, my number 4. Coming in at number 3, A Study in Emerald. All right, so I've got here on the screen the second edition cover up there because this is the one you can get right now. But I will tell you, there are pretty significant differences between the second edition and the first edition. Second edition is fine. This is the one that's out there. It's going to give you an idea of what the game is. I do prefer the first one because this is a game that, like most of the Martin Wallace games that I like, just feel completely batty, just really weird. And this game is so bizarre. It's a deck builder. It is a asymmetric game. It's a team game, but you don't necessarily know who's on your team. It's got vampires. It's got Cthulhu. It's got Sherlock Holmes. It's based off of a short story by Neil Gaiman. Wacky. Really weird game. I literally cannot think of another game anything like A Study in Emerald, especially the first edition. Second edition is still weird, don't get me wrong. Maybe they ramp down the weirdness a little bit, make it a little bit more approachable, but it's still just a weird game, but I really like it. Study in Emerald. My number 2. This is probably the closest to what you would think of as a traditional feeling Martin Wallace game because it's got route building. That's Australia, all right? But this is another one that has some very odd elements. So Australia, in some ways, is a Euro, right? It's kind of a standard Euro where you've got a board with hexes and you've got little chips that you're flipping over and you're kind of doing Euro-y things, right? But this also has great old ones that you're fighting, and you could potentially, everybody playing the game, it's a competitive game, but everyone playing the game could potentially lose to the great old ones. That little hook was enough to make me go, what the heck is going on here? And the game itself is really solid too. But you can't just ignore the great old ones and kind of try to go for your win condition because they could just straight up win and everybody loses. That little twist, very, very cool. I like Australia quite a bit. All right, here we go. My number 1 favorite Martin Wallace game is Wildlands. So Wildlands is a skirmish game. And it's a card-driven skirmish game. But it's a game that much of the appeal of the game to me is there's a couple of things. Number 1, it's very, very modular. So it's a game that came in the box with, I believe, 4 factions that all play slightly differently. You know, some have magic powers, some don't. Some have really strong melee fighting and some don't. Some have strong ranged, some have no ranged at all. Okay, so they've got different types of factions that are fighting each other. You've got different maps that come in the game that have different effects that can affect your units on the board. So that's cool. I like the modularity of the game. But I also really love the idea that the way you win the game is either by collecting all of the kind of gems from the other team or by knocking out their units on the map. And the way it starts out is that every space on the board has a number. And there's a card for every one of those numbers. All right? At the beginning of the game, you're going to get 10 of those cards that you are going to pick 5 of them to be where your opponents have their gems, or one of your opponents if you're playing multiplayer. And then the other 5 are going to be where your units come out on the board. And so every turn, you have to, if you have not revealed all of your units, you have to reveal at least one of them, right? So at the beginning of the game on your first turn, you flip over a card, say 32, and you'll pop your unit into space number 32. You could also, if you wanted to, expose all of your units and just have them all come out there on the board. Probably don't want to do that. But the idea that you can kind of set up not only where your opponents want to be, but where you are going to show up is great. So maybe you put a gem or one of their crystal shards that they're trying to get for, and they're heading right towards it, and then you have set it up so that you've got one of your tank units that show up right next to it, and then you have at them. I love that stuff. Really good game. Wildlands, clever card-driven skirmish game. All right, here we go. That was Martin Wallace. I've gotten through what? 3. I think I'm doing okay time-wise. We'll see. We'll see. How are we doing in the chat? We doing all right? We doing all right? Okay. Looks like we're doing okay. Someone, Richard, says that he likes, I'm assuming he's talking about Wildlands here, that he likes the co-op expansion, the Ancients. It's a fantastic expansion. I agree. All right. My number 7 most favorite designer is Antoine Bauza. Antoine Bauza, I have so much respect for as a designer for a number of reasons. Number one is I feel like he is a designer that has such a clear design ethos, if that makes sense. His games tend to have a feel, okay? And it's not only thematic, he has a lot of games that have similar thematic ties, but it's also just kind of in they're games that to me are emotional, right? When I think of Bauza games, I think of emotions that they make me feel oftentimes, all right? And so I appreciate that about him as a designer. All right. My number 5 favorite game from Antoine Bauza, or Boza, I may be mispronouncing it. Let's just assume I'm mispronouncing everything, right? My number 5 is what I like to call the crew killer, Hanabi. The OG, baby, the OG cooperative card game, Hanabi. The crew is fine. Okay, Hanabi is a game that is somewhat fragile. I will put it to you that way. When you have a group that is willing to kind of go into this space and try to plumb the depths of what this design has to offer, it can be one of the most special experiences I've ever had, for sure. I remember the first couple of times I played Hanabi, this was one of these games, and they're rare. This is one of these games that made me rethink what games could be, because I'd just never seen anything like it. It really just kind of flipped my expectations of what a card game could be on its head. But again, it's somewhat fragile. If you have groups that can't really do well with the limited communication, that can cause problems. But for what it is, I think it's a game-changing design. I think it's a design that is very, very special. My number 5, Hanabi. And it's a shame that I made the mistake of trying to compare it to the crew, because the crew is fantastic and Hanabi is fantastic, and they can both live. And neither one of them has to be a flash in the pan. But, I said it, so I got to stick with it. My number 4 favorite game from Antoine Bauza is Takenoko, the panda game, as many people like to think of it. So Takenoko is a delightful, delightful family weight game where you've got a group of tiles that make up your play area. And you have a panda figurine on the board, and you've got a gardener figurine on the board. And you are rolling a die to do some weather types of things. So there's a little bit of die rolling. But essentially what you're trying to do is you are trying to get points through different aspects, either by feeding the panda a certain number and type of bamboo. It has these beautiful wooden bamboo pieces that you can stack on top of each other. The production on this is fantastic. It's one of the earlier productions I looked at and was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. This is amazing, right? When you see these wooden bamboo pieces. So you're either trying to feed the panda, or you're trying to get the particular types of tiles in a particular configuration, or you're trying to get the gardener to do particular things. So just, again, this is a game that I've played to death. I don't recommend, it's not a game I recommend much anymore because I've played it so many times, but it's still fantastic. So I really like Takenoko. My number 3 favorite game from Antoine Bauza is Seven Wonders. Now, I'm going to go ahead and spoil the rest of my Bauza list. Seven Wonders Duel isn't on here. I don't even necessarily argue with people, if they want to say that Duel is a better design. Oh, okay, maybe. It might be. You've got two fantastic designers that are taking a pre-existing game and iterating on it, so sure. But Seven Wonders is one of the earlier hobby games I just went like crazy for. I remember my wife Tiffany and I, and other friends of ours, we would just play this over and over and over and over again. And once you kind of have a group that knows the game, that knows the cards, it plays so fast. The one thing that I do think that is unfortunate is that oftentimes Seven Wonders gets mentioned as a gateway game. I don't think it's a good gateway game at all. I think for new players, it can be overwhelming with the icons and some of the different ideas behind it. But for seasoned gamers, we're like, oh, this game is easy. This is nothing. This is light. Not really. Trust me, when you try to teach people that aren't familiar with games Seven Wonders, it can be overwhelming because I've done it. But I love it. This is a game I'll still play. Never a question. I'll play Seven Wonders anytime. So that's my number 3 from Antoine Boza, Seven Wonders. All right. Get ready for the controversy, folks. Ultra is my number 2. This is here because Ghost Stories is too hard. All right. I played Ghost Stories for years. I still appreciate it. It's too hard. I can't beat Ghost Stories. Again, not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I've never beat Ghost Stories. All right. I'm terrible at it. Ultra has a similar feel. Z Garcia, you know Z, don't you? He pushes back on that vehemently. But the game has so many things in common. You've got a central area that is being besieged from 4 outer areas where you've got things coming in towards you that you've got to deal with. You're trying to manipulate things. You're trying to mitigate things. It has a little bit more of a story element to it. It's a little bit lighter. But for me, this gives me what I wanted out of Ghost Stories, which was a chance. I wanted a chance. I wanted to feel like I had a chance. So Ultra, I've lost plenty of times. It's not a cakewalk, but I have won. And so that's the thing, is that it gives me a lot of the feel of Ghost Stories, but it gives me a chance. It lets me feel like I've got a chance. How many more times? Yeah. Sam, good to see you here in the chat. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. All right. My number 1 game from Antoine Bauza gets a whole lot of grief. It's Tokaido. What's wrong with the game being light? I remember I talked about emotions, right? His games evoke emotions in me. I love the way I feel when I'm playing Tokaido. That's the thing. It's hard to quantify, in a critical manner why I like Tokaido, because so much of why I like it is emotional, right? It's not coming from a place of mechanics. It's coming from a place of feel and emotion. And I just love spending time in that space. I like the feeling around the table when I'm playing Tokaido. I like how everybody seems to be in a similar space. Now, I get that if what you're looking for in a game, maybe that day or maybe that time, is something much more competitive, much more cutthroat, Tokaido ain't it, right? This is a journey. This is literally a game about traveling from one side of the map to the other side of the map, collecting things. It's set collection. I don't want to say I don't care if I win, because that's not necessarily true. I mean, everyone would like to win. But this is a game where the destination is more important to me than the journey to me is more important than the destination. Okay. I just love the feeling it gives me. And that's why Tokaido is my number 1 game from Antoine Bauza, who is my number 7th favorite game designer. Have I tried that new Tokaido for 2 players? I have. Tokaido Duo. It's fantastic. I love it. Okay, here we go. My number 6 favorite designer is a Renaissance man. Does it all. Matter of fact, I don't know on a metaphysical level how one person, well, and this person I'm sure would say that it's not one person. How does Ryan Laukat do it? How does Ryan Laukat do this? How does he design these games? How does he do the art for these games? How does he do the music, or at least help with the music for these games? It's mind-blowing to me. And many of these games are not little games. These are huge, sprawling epics. And it's just amazing. But he's not up here because he can do a lot of different things. He's up here because I really like his games, right? And my number 5 is going to be one of the kind of outliers, in that it is a smaller game. Alex is intimidated. Look, you look at Ryan Laukat, the first thing that I'm thinking about is intimidating, right? He's an intimidating individual. He's like Ivan Drago. I will break you. Or is it I must break you? He's a lovely, lovely human being. My number 5 is Rome. Rome is a small game that kind of, I feel like, just snuck through the cracks. I don't get it. I don't know why this game was not more popular. I'm guessing it's because it's a bit of an outlier in his design. Au vieux. Did I say that right? Someone can correct me there. In that it's mostly an abstract game. It's a relatively small box abstract game. And you can also kind of see little hints for things that Laukat does later in his designs based off of things that you see in Rome. Specifically, I'm talking about, I almost wonder if working on Rome gave him some of the ideas for combat in games like Sleeping Gods and or Now or Never. Maybe he was working on those first and then Rome came from that. But anyway, I don't know. A really, really fun, small box, abstract game with, gorgeous art, of course. Gorgeous art. Let's just put that out there for all of these. Just assume that if Ryan Laukat's name is on the box, it has gorgeous art. Okay? We can stipulate to that, correct? All right. I gotta tell you, I'm not liking the amount of forehead I'm seeing here. I am not thrilled with the amount of forehead. This is forehead cam. This is not doing wonders for my self-esteem, folks. I gotta tell you. All right, here we go. My number 4 favorite game. Yes, I'm trying to say body of work in French, Bonnie. Thank you. Au vieux. And I've offended an entire nation at this point. All right, where am I at? Number 4 for Ryan Laukat is The Ancient World. The Ancient World. This is another game that I think maybe gets underestimated by folks. I think Ancient World has some similarities. Actually, that's one thing you could say about most of Ryan's big box games, is that they do have certain elements that feel familiar, right? And I like that. That's something you're actually going to see from some of my favorite designers. You can't say that about Martin Wallace. You can't really pin him down, right? Ryan Laukat has certain elements that feel familiar, like kind of the way you use characters and units and kind of exhaust them and different ways that works. That's something you'll see in games like Ancient World and Above and Below and things like that, and maybe some other games I talk about here. But Ancient World is a game where you are fighting these large titans, right? And so it has a bit of a combat element to it, but it's really good. It's a really good game. I played both editions. There was a first edition and a second edition. I do think the second edition is slightly better. All right, now I made a mistake. I mentioned the forehead. If I didn't say anything about the forehead, look, I'm going to do this the whole time. That's not any more flattering. That's much less flattering. All right. You're either going to get the forehead or you're going to get the chin. What do I got? This is what I got to work with, folks. This is what I got to work with. All right. Ancient World, really good. My number 4, sorry. My number 3 is, I'm going to say it, the most underrated Ryan Lockett game. Unfortunately, we're on a bit of a delay here because this is a live stream. But I'm going to wait a second or two. See if anyone could guess what you think the most underrated Ryan Lockett game is. I'm going to drink a little bit of bubbly water. While you say, what's the most underrated Ryan Lockett game? This is where we find out how long my delay is. Okay, we got some answers coming in. Kabuki Kid says, Empires of the Void 2. Perhaps, Kabuki, but I've never played it. Oh, Nick says Megaland. Interesting. I do like Megaland, but it's not Megaland. Nick, I'm going to remove from broadcast. All right. No. Artifacts Inc., a good choice. However, a couple people have said it. It is Islebound. Yes, Islebound is my third favorite, and I feel most underrated Ryan Lockett game. I really, really like this. Now, part of it is the setting. Just to be clear, I like water, nautical themed games. I water, for one reason or another, calls to me. And so I like that I had kind of some of these familiar Ryan Lockett mechanics, but in a world of water and nautical and moving your ship around. And I also like that you are trying to kind of take control of these islands, but you can do it in a couple of different ways. You can do it through force, or you could do it through diplomacy. And I really liked that little wrinkle to things too. So really clever design, a game that I feel like just, again, went right under the radar for a lot of folks. But Islebound's really, really good. A couple people talking about City of Iron. I haven't played City of Iron either. All right. My number 2 is what many people would call the magnum opus of Ryan Lockett, and that is Sleeping Gods. Yeah, Sleeping Gods. Look, you want to talk about achievements. You want to talk about just the massive amount of work involved and again, I doubt very highly that Ryan would allow unchallenged the idea that this is a one-person job. I know that he has a team, many of whom are family members around him that I'm sure are integral parts of what he does. But you got to think that a lot of this is coming from him. And this is such a... I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by some of these comments. It's water. All right. This is such an impressive design, right? Not just impressive in its scope, not just impressive in its size, but the fact that it works, the fact that it evokes to me what, right now, if you are in social media in any way whatsoever, you're going to see people talking about the new Zelda game. Rightfully so. I'm sure it's fantastic. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. But this game is as close as I get to feeling like that around a table, right? Where I can go wherever I want to go. I can do whatever I want to do. It has things that you want. It has goals, but it's not on rails. I guess that's the thing, is that this just does not feel like it is on rails at all. It feels truly open world, as close as you can get without it being just a pure story game, right? Number 2, Sleeping Gods. And yes, a lot of people thought it'd be number 1, but it still has not quite beaten out for me Near and Far. Maybe it's because Near and Far came first, and it was one of the first campaign games that I played all the way through. Maybe it's because I love that this is a game that has a much smaller scale. It is much more tightly contained than Sleeping Gods. And so while Sleeping Gods is fantastic and it is impressive in scope, it also is almost overwhelming. Near and Far is more contained, right? Where I feel like I've got a little bit more of a handle on what's happening and what I can do there. And so I feel like I have more, it feels more lived into me, more comfortable, right? Now, Will Sleeping Gods overtake it? If I've played through a couple of campaigns of Sleeping Gods, but I'm not even close to seeing everything there is there. And then there's another one coming after that. So anyway, will maybe this get overtaken? I hope so, because that means a better game is coming. But it's going to have to be really good to be better than Near and Far. There's my number 1 game from my number 6 favorite designer. All right. Number 5. I've got my paper here, but I also have it right over here on the screen. So look, I'm good. I'm covered either way. How are we doing, chat? We doing all right? I'm really enjoying this, being able to interact with chat. I even saw Chris. Chris is supposed to be taking a break. He's supposed to be sleeping. Unless he's... Can you sleep type? Can you sleep type? If anyone could, I bet Chris could. Chris, go to sleep. Ridiculous. My number 5 favorite designer is Sashi. Sashi, yes. Of Sashi and Sashi fame. Japanese publisher who... I just find their games delightful. That's the word that I, a lot of times when I kind of describe designers, I have different words that come to mind, right? We'll talk about some upcoming, like Wallace is just like kind of like wacky, like crazy out there, Sashi is delightful. Delightful. My number 5 favorite Sashi and Sashi game is Wind the Film, or as it has been reissued for English-speaking audience, Photograph. Okay, that's through Matago, I believe. I'm showing the original Sashi and Sashi edition here, but this is a really, really cool card game that has some similar aspects to a game like Bonanza, where or even Scout to some extent, where you can't rearrange the order of the cards in your hand, right? And you're trying to play sets of cards, runs of cards out in front of them by drafting cards from rows or columns, all right? And when you get those cards and you put them into your hand, you have to put them at the front. And you can wind the film. You can choose one card to move. And that's it. And then you've got to play out cards. But you have to play out the same number of cards that you drafted, right? Really smart. And when you could pull it off, it feels so clever. And the thing is, like, well, you say, well, what if you don't have that run? What if you drew 2 cards and can't play 2? Well, you have to. You can still play them, but if they're not in sequence, then you flip one over upside down, and it's now out of focus, because the idea is you're a photographer. Brilliant. Brilliant. Little card game. So good. Wind the Film. My number 4. Remember Our Trip. All right, so this is a game where this is a co-design with Daryl Chow, I believe. Yes, I believe that's correct. My eyes are poor, but I think I can see that. Yes. Where you are, I love the idea behind this. It's like you went on a trip with somebody, right? You went and visited some place, and you're trying to recreate in your mind what you did on that trip. And different people are going to have different memories of what they saw and did on that trip. And so the idea is that you're kind of playing out these pieces out onto a central board, but everyone's sitting oriented differently to that board. And depending upon where your orientation is going to depend upon how you remember things. There's just something delightful, right? These are delightful games. It's like, that is so cute. I love that idea, right? I just love that idea. And someone saying only number 4, that's fair. This is a game that I need to play more. This is one that, for one reason or another, every other one of these Sashi games are ones that I own. I don't own Remember Our Trip because we have it in the Dice Tower studio. Well, I'm not at the Dice Tower studio right now, so I need to get myself a copy of Remember Our Trip so I can play it some more, because it is fantastic. All right. My number 3, In Front of the Elevators, a small little card game with, again, a theme that is so fantastic So the idea here is that you've got cards that represent different type of people. You got grandpa, you got grandma, you got the little girl, you got the little boy, you got mom and dad, right? And you're all trying to get them, and you've got these cards that are elevators, doors to elevators. And you're trying to get your characters to the front of those elevators so that they can get in the elevator before the other people. And the way it works is that when you play a particular card, there are rules. Like this card is always going to go in, this card is going to butt in front of that card. This card's going to go, if this card gets played, then it's going to go back with grandpa, right? Very simple, very, very, welcoming type of a game. Not hard to explain, not hard to teach. And with a theme that, as silly as it sounds, makes sense and actually helps you remember how to play the game. Just adorable, adorable, adorable. In front of the elevators. All right. I feel like I need to speed up. I'm an hour in. We'll see. Maybe I wanted to be done with this. Yeah, I need to hurry up. Okay. My number two, from Sashi. Let's make a bus route. So this is a flip and write game with a shared central board that is a dry erase board. And you all have your own individual player boards. And what you're trying to do is just what it says. You're making a bus route. So when you flip over a card, it's going to have particular routes that you can take, which are just essentially lines that you're drawing on this board, right? And so everyone is sharing the same central board, but you're starting from different locations. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to pick up particular passengers and drop them off in other places. So you're trying to pick up students and drop them off at university. You've got tourists that want to take photographs of the temple. So you're trying to take the tourists to the temples. You're just trying to pick up elderly people because that's the right thing to do. And you get more points for the most of those. So a delightful little game, a neat little idea where, since it is a shared central board, if you go over lines that other people have drawn, that creates traffic, negative points for you. Let's make a bus route. All right. Sorry, folks. I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit here because I'm afraid that I'm not going to have any time for the Q&A. And my number one is very personal to me, and that's Coffee Roaster. Do I think that other designs on here might be better designs? Maybe. But Coffee Roaster is one of the first solo-only games I played that just knocked me out. I can't tell you how many times I played Coffee Roaster. It's a bag-building game where you have particular roasts that you are trying to create by putting chips in a bag that represent beans and flavors and things like that. And you are trying to manipulate this bag in such a way so that at the end of the round, you pull out chips one by one from that bag blindly. You don't know what you're getting. And you're putting them onto this coffee cup. And you're trying to hit a particular value, right? So let's say the value for this particular brew is you want it to have a robustness of 15, right? Something along those lines. And so some of the tokens you're pulling out of the bag are simply numbers, 3 or 4, and they're representing the strength of the bean or what have you, of the brew. But some of them are going to be burnt, right? And you don't want burnt beans in your coffee. It doesn't taste good. Some of them are going to be powers that can let you manipulate things. This is just a game that, again, it has a lot of personal importance to me. So that's why it's my number one favorite game from my number 5 favorite designer, Sashi. That is Coffee Roaster. All right, my number 4 favorite designer is somebody that is probably at least as well known for being a publisher as they are for being a designer, and that is Jamey Stegmaier. Jamey Stegmaier is somebody that their most popular game, his most popular game as a publisher, is not even his own design, right? Wingspan, I think it's clear, is the most popular design for Stonemaier Games, his publishing house. And that's because it's by a fantastic designer, Elizabeth Hargrave, who I have not played 5 games from, so I didn't put on the list. But certainly, you better believe Elizabeth Hargrave is going to be on my favorite designers list if I didn't have to put 5 games. I imposed that upon myself. Anyway, Jamey Stegmaier is also an amazing designer as well as being a obviously very successful publisher. Coming in at number 5 is Euphoria, a game that I don't know that many people have played. Well, I mean, compared to his other games, certainly, right? Euphoria is a worker placement game where your dice are your workers, right? And it has maybe the biggest sense of humor of any Stonemaier game that I've played. It's very, very tongue-in-cheek. It has this idea of, obviously this is, kind of this in the future type of a thing. And your workers, the value on them represents their knowledge. You don't want your workers to get too smart, right? Because if your workers get too smart, they cause problems and they mess up the system. So you gotta deal with that. So clever dice worker placement game. There's some card play, set collection things going along there too. Tracks, right? So very Euro-y, and feels a little different than other Stegmaier games I've played, but I still like it a lot. All right. My number 4, Charterstone. Yes, this is a game that I feel is underappreciated as a legacy game. Okay. I did play this all the way through as a legacy game, and I did also play it as a game that is a finished thing, because after you finish the campaign, you now essentially have your own custom edition of Charterstone. Okay. And it's better as a legacy experience, right? As its own game, it's fine. But what really put it on the list for me is that legacy experience. I really enjoyed it. I don't know that I've played a legacy game that had more of a sense of pacing. This game, some of those sessions were so fast. I felt like we can easily, in a regular game night, get through 2, maybe 3, depending upon the particular scenario of this game. Worker placement, I don't want to say too much, but with some neat player powers. And someone here in the mentioned, who mentioned it? Let me see if I can find it. A couple people. Oh, here, yeah. Lisa and other people. The Charterstone app is also very good. Very, very good. One of the better apps out there. So Charterstone, really, really good game. And one that I will come back to, but mostly up this high because of that legacy experience that I enjoyed so much. My number 3 is a very controversial game. What a shock. Tapestry. Yes, Tapestry. It's unbalanced. It's broken. No, it's fine. It's fine. Have adjustments been made? Yes. Did they need to be made? Probably, right? But it has not diminished my enjoyment of this game. So it had a couple of things going against it. For one, it's very ambitious, and the idea that you're putting in all of these different types of, civs that have different abilities create potential problems, right? For one. For two, it's called a civilization game. And that is a loaded term, right? When you say civilization game, there are certain things that people are expecting in board gaming. This game is better described as a civilization-themed game, right? It doesn't have the standard tropes of most Civ games. What it does have is some really fun tracks that you get to go up, right? And combo-y feels. It really just scratches a very, very particular itch for me. There are certain times when I'm in the mood to play Tapestry and no other game can fulfill that, right? That's not always the case. Sometimes I'm in the mood for something like this. If I'm in the mood for Tapestry, that's the only game that's going to fulfill that for me. Because thematically, yeah, sure. It's not necessarily what you would consider a classic civilization type game. It's very abstracted, as mentioned here. It is very abstracted for sure. But what it does, I think it does so well. And yes, you have to be okay with the idea of retconning some of these civs and saying, okay, well, this civilization, if you play with them, they're going to start with a couple of extra resources. Okay. They're going to start with some extra points. Okay. Maybe they're going to start with 40 points. Tom Vassal's head explodes. I don't care. Am I having a good time? I'm having a good time. Tapestry. All right. My number 2, viticulture. Yes, yes, yes. Another one that a lot of people, well, I don't know about a lot of people, but certain people have issues with viticulture. They especially have issues with maybe some of the luck of the cards and, maybe getting wine orders that you can't fulfill right away. This is another one where, again, I don't quite get that issue as much. I'm not saying it hasn't been a problem for other people. It just hasn't had a problem for me. I always have a lovely time playing viticulture. It's a worker placement game that I just feel does so many things so well. I like the turn order track. I think that that's very clever. I like the different seasons. I do feel like it is as its best. Playing with the Essential Edition of Viticulture and the Essential Edition of Tuscany. That is this design at its best for me. But I'll just put Viticulture here as my number 2 because just as its own design, I think it's very, very good. And I think that it does a very good job. And I do get, I hear people say that it feels very unthematic. I don't get that at all, right? I mean, of course, everything is abstracted. Is this live? Yes, unless I'm doing some very particular sorcery. It is indeed live. Anyway, viticulture, I dig it. See, the problem is with my feeble mind, when I address something in the chat, then I completely forget what I was talking about and lose my train of thought. All right. My number 1 game by my number 4 favorite designer, Scythe, right? Not a surprise. You can see there we go. You can see the legendary box peeking above my head there, all right? Scythe had been my number 1 game for many, many years. It has recently been dethroned, but it is still a game that I have a tremendous amount of not only respect for, I respect it as a design, but I also still like to play it. I find it fun. It's a game that when you see it on the table, feels very different than what you expect. At least I'll speak for myself. When I first saw it on the table, I was like, oh, whoa, what's going on here? This is, mechs and it looks huge and sprawling, and it is. But it's really an efficiency puzzle, right? This game is an efficiency puzzle, and I love efficiency puzzles. What's the only thing that can make an efficiency puzzle better? A mech. Exactly. That's why Scythe is my number 1. All right. Here we go. My number 3 favorite. Yeah, it's hard that you can actually, it's amazing you can actually see Scythe above this massive forehead that I now am convinced that I have. All right. My number 3 favorite designer is somebody that does a lot of co-designs, actually. But, and some of my favorite games from this designer are co-designs, but I don't think that necessarily takes them out of the running. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to spoil my list a little bit. And I hate to do this, but I'm going to spoil a little bit. Kramer and Kiesling are not on this list. Because although they have done individual designs, and also some spectacular individual designs, I think of them as a design team. Kramer and Kiesling as a design team would likely be in or near my top 10. But I didn't put them there. Cathala, my number 3, Bruno Cathala, does do work with other designers. And again, some of these designs are co-designs. But I don't think of him as a team, right, with one specific designer. He worked with a lot of them. Bruno Cathala, magnificent. It's rare. I like some games more than others from Bruno, but I'm struggling to think of a game that he's designed that I just don't like. I don't know if there is one that I've played that I just don't like. And I've played a lot of his games. That's saying something. My number 5 is kind of a personal pick for me that will likely not show up on anybody else's top 5, probably not even Bruno Catala's, and that is Imaginarium. All right. Imaginarium is a very odd game that is a card-driven game, but it has some aspects that I've seen in other Bruno games that I really like, that are carried over here. Number one being that you are bidding for turn order with points. That is such a deliciously difficult decision, right? This is my number 3 designer, Lisa. Number 3, Bruno Catala. Yeah, I probably should have put that up here somewhere. Sorry. So that aspect I like. I like the fact that when you're putting cards in front of you, there's a bit of a tableau building element and an engine building element to it too. But when you put those cards out, they can be upgraded, and you have to build them with resources that you're getting, and you get those resources through these cards. Okay. Very, very clever. I wouldn't call it elegant, right? But it's very good. The art is divisive. I'll just leave it at that. The art can be off-putting. I love the art. I love it. But it's not for everybody. My number 4, very new, Cult of the New. Yes, I get it. Orichalcum. I love this game. I love Orichalcum. This is a game where you are shot out of a cannon from the first turn. It's a race to 5 points, and you are doing stuff from turn 1. You feel this momentum. Have you ever been on a roller coaster where you start at 0 and you've got like this huge hill you're going to climb, so they just launch you out of there with a jet engine? That's to me what Orichalcum feels like to me. It's like right away you're playing and whoa, you're in it, right? I love that feeling of tension and everything you're doing is leading you ever closer, and you're always having to pay attention to what other people are doing, because they can go from 3 points to 5 points in a single turn and win right away. The game ends at 5 points, right? It's no finish the round, get one more round. No. 5 points, you're done, right? And so you feel that tension, right? Orichalcum, love it. My number 3, someone predicted would be my number 1, Abyss. Abyss is great, right? Why isn't Abyss number 2 or number 1? Because I really love Bruno Catala games, and I like the other 2 better than this. But if I'll put it to you this way, I'm getting distracted by chat. Kabuki, SOS Titanic is fantastic. It is. All right, here's my point. If Abyss is your number 3 design, you're a pretty amazing designer, right? And this is just in my opinion, right? Abyss, a beautiful underwater world, which I've already mentioned is something that I particularly appeals to me. Clever card play, special powers. It's got it all. Love me some Abyss. My number 2, I think that I like more than many other people. Cleopatra and the Society of Architects. I prefer the Days of Wonder edition. Okay, I know that's out of print, and you can get a version from Mojito Studios. That's great. Go ahead and get it. Crazy enough, the reason why I prefer this version, this Days of Wonder, this ridiculous over-the-top production, is because I feel like it's overproduced, the new one. It's like too much, right? Cleopatra, fantastic, fantastic game that does a lot of different things. You are essentially just trying to build this temple to Cleopatra, and you're doing this primarily through playing kind of sets of cards, right? And you also are kind of building these little tetromino pieces across the top. That's, one of the earlier versions of Tetris style pieces that I played in a game. It also has this one little hook that I think is so brilliant, which is that you've got this resource market, cards in a market, and there are 3 kind of stacks that are going to have cards in front of them. And you take half the cards and you turn them face up, and the other half and you turn them face down, and you shuffle them together. So that when you are seeding these markets, you can see some of the cards and you can't see others. That is so brilliant to me. I don't know what it is. I just love that. That little hook gets me. My number 2, Cleopatra and the Society of Architects. And my number 1, as many people have mentioned, Five Tribes. A game that the first time I played it, when we were done, I literally had to stop and just think about what had just happened. It left that visceral of an impression on me. I was familiar with the idea of Mancala, right? I'd probably even kind of messed around with a Mancala board before, who knows? I was certainly familiar with the idea. But the idea of taking that central mechanic and spinning this beautifully elegant Euro game around that was mind-blowing to me. And how well it works. How well it all comes together, right? The fact that when it's somebody else's turn, you can get in their heads. You're like, oh. And they start putting their hand towards it. Ooh. Convince them that they're making the wrong move. I love it. Anyway, Five Tribes is a fantastic design. From a fantastic designer, my number 3 favorite designer, Bruno Catala. All right. Number 2. Now this one's tricky. This is very tricky. Because I've been mentioning this whole design team thing. And I think of Kramer and Kiesling as a design team. And anymore, it almost feels like Shem Phillips is part of a design team with Sam McDonald. And some of the games on my list are co-designs. And so that has to be mentioned. But Shem Phillips is the designer. His individual games are the ones that drew me in to this world, these worlds that he has been a part of creating, right? And so that's kind of where I'm giving Shem maybe more credit than he would even like, based upon these designs. All right, Shem Phillips, my number 2 favorite designer. But Sam, you're in there. You're in there, of course. Number 5, Architects of the West Kingdom. So the West Kingdom games generally are playing around with worker placement. What some people would say is an overused theme or mechanism, in board games, right? Different ways of messing around with those. In Architects, you start with all of your workers. You've got access to all of your workers, right? And when you place them on the board to take particular actions, the more of your workers that you place on that action spot, the stronger that action is going to become. So if you go to the place where you get wood, you put 1 worker, you get 1 wood. All right, you put 2 workers there, or you put your second worker there, you get 2 wood. Well, you can't just keep going there without getting the attention of other folks, right? Because they don't want you to take all the wood. There's only so much wood in the forest. Leave me some wood. I'm going to get your workers arrested. Yes, so you can get their workers arrested and you can put them in the prison. Really clever game. A great ratio of rules to gameplay experience, right? It's not very difficult to teach. And it creates such a fantastic experience. So there we go. Architects, my number 5 favorite game. Number 4, Wayfarers of the South Tigris. Wayfarers of the South Tigris. Playing around with dice, the first of a new trilogy. And so I'm very excited to see where these designers are going to go with these dice, the dice mechanisms, right? In Wayfarers, the idea is that you are placing dice in kind of a personal player board, but you can adjust what actions those dice are going to do. And when you are playing the game, you are collecting cards that you're placing in front of you in this personal tableau that by the end of the game is just this gorgeous panorama of land and space and sea and sky. It's gorgeous. And it's a beautiful representation of what you're doing in the game, where you're essentially going out and being cartographers and getting a lay of the land, right? And what you have in front of you at the end is a physical representation of that. Beautiful, beautiful game. Oh, thank you, Sam. You let me off the hook, or you let me off the hook. I really do appreciate that, because I think everybody knows that you are an integral part to certainly every game that has your name on it, right? Wayfarers being one of them, and Architects as well. All right. My number 3. Here's where my solo weakness gets me, right? Legacy of You. Man, I love this game. A solo-only campaign-style game that does so many of the things that I love in other Garphill games and puts it into such a beautiful little package, right? Not just as a physical production, which it is beautiful, but as an experience, right? I feel like this was tailor-made for me almost. It's like it sets up super fast. It plays in the perfect amount of time. If I play one session of it, I feel like I've had a really solid experience. But I could actually play 2 and it's not going to feel like it's too much. It gets put back so easily. It has a nice story element, but it's not overwhelming to the point of you get lost in the weeds, right? Such a great design. Such a great design. And it's behind me. It's right behind. Oh, there we go. It's right behind. Look. Now you don't. Now you see it? Now you don't. Legacy of You. All right. My number 2. Paladins of the West Kingdom. I have a hard time putting this game into words. It is such an impressive design. And from a design standpoint, I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. From a design standpoint, it's a better design than my favorite game from this designer, right? Mechanically, this is one of the best designed Euros I've ever played. I'm banging the table and it's shaking the thing. I better not do that. It is a stunning achievement to me in Euro design. So many interlocking pieces. The idea of these different kind of, what's the word? Attributes. Thank you. These different, am I acting tired? People are saying have a coffee. I'm not, look, I'm vibrant. I'm full of energy, baby. Overcompensating? Maybe a little bit. Paladins is just a very, very impressive design. I was talking about the attributes and how those kind of work off of each other and having to kind of account for all of these interlocking pieces. There are certain games that have all of these interlocking pieces that feel overwhelming to me and overwrought. Paladins does not. It feels like a beautiful clockwork. All right? And yes, my number 1 is, again, maybe an emotional pick. It's Raiders with the expansions. I have to say that, with the expansions. Base Raiders I still adore, but it's a little, slight compared to some of these other designs. That's not a fair thing to put. It's lighter. It doesn't mean it's not less than. It's lighter, right? But I do love Raiders with the expansions. And it has, I was talking about making kind of riffs on worker placement. This has the place a worker, take an action, remove a worker from a different location, take that action. All right. It just knocked me out. It knocked me out. And I still, darn it, this is not working well for me. There. It is still a game that I am happy to play, happy to teach. Love it, love it, love it. Raiders of the North Sea, my number 1 favorite game from my number 2 favorite designer, Shem Phillips with Sam McDonald. You got to put him in there. All right, here we go. I'm going to shock everyone with my number 1. Everyone's going to be very, very shocked about this one. Because you all thought you had me figured out, right? I know what number one is. People are already guessing games for this designer. And get ready, folks. My number one. Of course it's Reiner Knizia. What are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Of course it's Reiner. How dare you? How dare you think it's going to be anything other than the mathematical genius that is Reiner Knizia? Here's the thing. I'm terrible at math. I have a physical and emotional abhorrence of math because I feel so inadequate at it. And the math, many times in a Reiner Knizia game, is right there, baby. You're not hiding it, right? Many times that spreadsheet is crawling out of the box. I don't know what it is about his designs. Now look, he's got, I think the last time I checked, 476,000 designs. They can't all be zingers, folks, right? And yes, he re-implements. I get it. He's a genius. I talk about, look, Bowser, has the aesthetic that I love. And Sashi games are just delightful. Reiner Knizia is a genius of game design to me, right? He's on the Mount Rushmore for me of game designers. All right, here we go. My number 5 favorite game from Reiner Knizia, Millefiori, Cult of the New, Ganz Schön Knizia. This game is very much an outlier in his design oeuvre, or however else I'm mispronouncing it, right? Most of his games are not like this. He doesn't usually do point salads, right? Millefiori is a combo-tastic game where you are playing a card, putting out a piece, and getting points every single turn. You can't take a turn without getting points, right? You're getting points. But it's so good. It is so good, so satisfying. Now, doesn't play as well at 2. I feel like I should mention that. However, look what showed up today. Literally showed up an hour and a half or 2 ago. The expansion. Yes. It makes the 2-player version better. Although, honestly, if I'm going to play a 2-player Knizia game, why am I not going to play one of his other amazing made-for-2-player games, right? Millefiori is better at 3 and 4. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Ganz Schön Knizia. All right. Duolingo, get off my back. I'll get to you when I get to you. Get off my back. Duolingo's yelling at me. My number 4 from Reiner Knizia is Botswana. Botswana is a great example of one of the many things that Knizia does so well, which is you read the rules. That'll take you about a minute. You flip over the page. You're like, wait, what? Where's the game? This is what you do. You play a card. You take an animal. Where's the game? You know where the game is? The game's around the table, folks. The game's with the other people around the table. The rules don't get in the way. All his games do, at their best, like this, is allow for an incredible interaction around the table. Super simple. You are literally playing a card with a number and taking an animal. And then those animals' values are going to be worth whatever the last played card is of that animal. That's the game. The fact that you can have such an amazing experience based off of that tiny rule set is the genius of Reiner Knizia. Thank you, Bonnie. Yes, Botswana is also published as Wildlife Safari. It's also been published as Loco. It's also been published as Thor. It's also been published as Quandary. So lots of different versions out there. Someone was asking if I'm learning Japanese. Lisa was asking. I'm not. I mean, that would be lovely, but I'm trying to learn Spanish. I'm trying. So my number 4 from Reiner Knizia, Botswana. My number 3, I'm putting the most recent edition of this game, but it has been published in many different versions. The most recent edition is Nightmare Productions. I played it primarily as Dream Factory. It's mostly been known in the earlier days as Traumfabrik, the German version of the game, which was, I believe, the first edition of the game. And this is one of Knizia's auction games. I feel like it would be hard to argue. You can try to argue. I would vehemently debate you. I don't think there's a better auction game designer than Reiner Knizia, right? He does other games, but his auction games are so far above and beyond that it's amazing. And for many people, Traumfabrik or Dream Factory or Nightmare Productions is not even in their top tier of his auction games. I get that, but I really love this one. It is a closed auction economy, okay? Closed auction economy. What that means is that there's a certain pool of money in the game, and no money is going to be entering or leaving that game other than what it starts with. So everyone's got their supply of money. If you're buying some tiles, if you're bidding for tiles, that money is getting split amongst the other players. And so much of what you're trying to do is not only get tiles for yourself, because the idea behind this is you are making movies, right? And so you need directors and you need stars and you need sound engineers and all this type of stuff. And all of these are represented by little tiles that you're placing in front of you on these film strips. But you're auctioning those tiles, okay? There's auctions for those groups of tiles. And so you sometimes don't even really want the tiles, but you want to make a relatively strong bid to hope someone will come out and outbid it, because again, everything that's bid, the winner gets the tiles, but whatever they bid gets split as evenly as possible amongst the remaining players. It's great. I love it. It's fantastic. And all of these, so many people in the chat are naming brilliant games that aren't even on my list because he's got too many great games. All right. Now, number 2 is the one that I'm going to stipulate right now. Is the design of these 5 that probably belongs on here the least. I have seen people in the chat mention games that didn't make my list that are probably better designs. Oops, sorry. But this is a personal list. And so for me, I have a very personal connection, a nostalgic connection to Blue Moon City, okay? Which is thematically, at least, a follow-up to a 2-player battling card game called Blue Moon. The games have nothing to do with each other other than the fact that they've got Blue Moon in the title and they've got similar art, okay? Blue Moon, the card game, was, I said, a 2-player back-to-back battler, almost like a war game. Blue Moon City is a game of shared incentives, all right, where you are trying to take a once great city that has fallen into disrepair and rebuild it. And you're doing this primarily through playing cards, right? Playing cards that allow you to move around this city, to put influence into these particular areas of the city. And then once enough influence gets on that tile, you flip it over, it gets rebuilt. And then if you had the majority on that tile, you're going to get points, and other players that contributed to that tile are going to get some benefits as well. All right. There's also dragons, because dragons makes everything better, right? Again, design-wise, does this belong to be up here ahead of other brilliant games that I absolutely adore? Maybe not, but it's my own personal list, and Blue Moon City is just a game that I can never see leaving my collection. That's all there is to it. But number 1 is a undisputed masterpiece. It's a masterpiece. Say it with me, folks. Raw. It's the best auction game there is. One of the best push your luck games there is. One of the best set collection games there is. And that's with whatever edition you may have. Okay? This has nothing to do with that fantastic production right there. The newest production of Raw by 25th Century. I have it. It's undoubtedly gorgeous, but you don't need any of it. Any of it. You can get the ugliest version of Ra that exists, and you're going to have an amazing time because this is a design that is so good. Auction, closed auction economy again. Set collection. Push your luck. Getting into the heads of the people around you. Right? And it plays great at all player counts too. Right? Ra plays really good at 2. This is... I can't think of something I don't like about Ra. It's brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. It is my number 1 game from my number 1 designer, Reiner Knizia. That is Ra. Whoo! All right, folks. Well, look. I need a few minutes. I'm spent. Not really, but you know. I was talking for a little while. So, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to kick it over to myself and my good buddy Dan Hughes. And this is a little kind of a show we put together that we're calling FaceTime Face-Off. We've done a couple of episodes on the Dice Tower already. If you have not seen them, I explained the concept behind this a little bit. But the general idea is Dan and I are taking 5 random games off of the Dice Tower People's Choice Top 100. And we are re-ranking them in the correct order. Right? Because it's like Dan really feels like the regular people, the folks, can't be trusted. Right? So Dan feels like he's got to make it. Anyway, I'm going to play this. When this is done, we're going to come back and I'm going to finish up my block with a live Q&A. So don't go anywhere, folks. But be prepared because you're going to have to see Dan's face in a minute. So okay. Before Dan comes on, let's prepare. Deep cleansing breath. In through the nose. Hold. Okay, you're about to see a very, very British man. Here we go. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of FaceTime Face-Off. I am one of your hosts, Mike DiLisio.
And I'm the best host, Dan Hughes.
That is very, very debatable. So FaceTime Face-Off is a show, if you have not seen it, where we're doing very, very important work. And before we even get into what that is, we've had a little bit of a struggle because we're not actually using FaceTime. We're using Skype. And we've had some people that have kind of turned in some ideas. Skype Showdown, that was a nice one. There were some other ones. But quite honestly, I already made the graphic for this and I can't be bothered. So we're going to keep with FaceTime Face-Off.
Oh, you made the graphic, did you, Mike? Did you make that graphic?
The one that says...
I seem to remember slaving over a hot Photoshop to make the FaceTime Face-Off poster.
We're talking about 2 different things, Dan. Now, that's correct. The thumbnail that is normally seen, and actually maybe in post-production because I have nothing else that I need to be doing, I'll put a picture of that up here because we're not actually... Everyone watching this right now is during the Dice Tower Gaming Marathon, and so therefore they probably wouldn't have seen that thumbnail, but I'll pop it up here.
Tom better put us on prime time, Mike. This better not be on at 3 o'clock in the morning. Otherwise, I'm going to be furious. I'm going to come around there and I'm going to twang his braces. That's what I'm going to do to him.
Well, 3 in the morning is 8 a.m. your time, so that's prime time. So you're fine either way, Dan. But yeah, so anyway, the idea behind this show, Dan, the important work that we're doing is such that we are taking the Dice, and let me make sure I get this right, the Dice Tower's People's Choice Top 100 games.
Oh, yeah, baby.
The Dice Towers, correct?
Dice Towers. That's who you
correct.
work for. Yep.
So the Dice Towers Top 100 games by the People's Choice, your choice. We're taking those items, those games, and we're re-ranking them.
That's right, because you can't be trusted. Because you don't know what the good game would be if it hit you in the middle of the eyes, you general public.
That's true.
Mike DiLisio, to be fair. It's only me, really, who should be re-ranking this. But unfortunately, Mike won't let me come on the Dice Tower unless I'm under his strict control.
It's interesting. We're coming at this. Leash. like everything else, we're coming at this from a very different angle. I was going to say that I am the professional, and I brought Dan along as the unwashed public, the representative for the unwashed public,
the expert. That's what I am.
To kind of keep things in. The idea behind.
We've covered this already, Mike. I've got a backlight. I'm the YouTube professional. You've got a bunch of boxers. You're clearly amateur.
Well, I have been told recently that I'm bringing back a 2010s era vibe for the Dice Tower with my backdrop. And I'd argue if I could, but it's very true. I guess I need to work on that. So the idea behind this is that we are going to re-rank these games, and we are only doing it 5 at a time, Dan, because this is physically and emotionally exhausting work. We really can't do more than 5 at a time.
It's draining, Mike, is what it is. I have to go and lie down in a dark room with a damp towel over my head for at least 2 or 3 days after this.
It really, it is important work. So, Dan, why don't we at this point just let the people know what are the 5? Now, these were randomly chosen.
Yes.
Correct? Randomly chosen.
Yeah.
Which 5 games from the People's Choice Top 100 have we got on our slate today?
Okay. I'll just bring up the laser display board and have a look. Okay, so we've got Lords of Waterdeep.
Okay.
Splendor. Underwater Cities. Catan, or Settlers of Catan if you're feeling a little bit old school. And Chronicles of Crime.
Okay. Interesting lineup. And those are all going to be, within a tier, compared to each other by the top 100 of the People's Choice. In other words, of those 5 games...
What are you talking about? Do you speak English? Have you had a stroke? What's going on? Say that again. They're going to be in a tier. What are you talking about? Go on, carry on.
All I'm saying is, of those 5 games, they are already ranked, in relation to each other, and we're going to re-rank them.
No, that's true. They are ranked already in relation to each other on the People's Choice Top 100. However, the people clearly got it wrong, so we need to do it again.
That's correct.
That order I read them out in, by the way, is not the People's Choice ranking. That's the order that the random number generator gave them into me. So.
Fantastic. And just for the people's edification, I don't know what those games are ranked in relation to each other. Dan might know, but I'm assuming you know. Yeah.
I do know because I am a professional and I look these things up. And the way we're going to rank these games,
yes, Dan.
is by using the wonderful website Pub Meeple.
I'm going to pull that up right now as you're talking, Dan. Yep.
And that uses a mathematical ranking system called is it Rank Sort or something like that?
I believe that's correct. Yeah, Rank Sort system, something along those lines.
So basically, it compares various... Imagine index cards. Pretty exciting stuff. Imagine the index cards. Now, with each game written on it, and you would pull 2 index cards out of the pile and compare them against each other, and then sort them into kind of which order. So we're going to compare 2 against each other, and then that will magically give us a ranked list at the end of the process.
Right. I believe that this whole website is built off of an algorithm that is a combination of the Dewey Decimal System, the metric system, and trigonometry, I believe. I think those are the 3 components that came together to make this work.
And the Milky Way system as well.
And the Milky Way system as well, yes, indeed. And when there is a disagreement, as there surely will be, vehement disagreements, we have a system to break the ties. Do we want to talk about that now, or do we want to wait until the first time it happens, Dan?
No, let's talk about it now, because people will be aching to know if they haven't previously seen. So we have, after... hours and hours of diligent work, me slaving away on the hot keyboard, I've come up with an AI system because, as we know, AI is all the rage. And it's Chat VSL, was it? Is that what you called it?
I think that was Chat VSL. I think is what we're going with. Yeah. Oh my goodness!
Here it is, the living embodiment of the AI system, and that will that is using an incredibly complex algorithm, which is no way. Well, I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't want anyone copying my algorithm. Google are going to buy it off me for millions. I'm sure in the future. That will decide the tiebreakers. Yes.
Okay. And just as a point of advice for you, Dan, if your keyboard is that hot, then there may be something wrong with your computer, and you probably want to get it looked at. All right. Dan, I have our first matchup. Are you ready?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be, Mike.
All right, well, let's pull up Pub Meeple. Our first matchup today, Dan, is going to be between Lords of Waterdeep and Splendor. So, Lords of Waterdeep, a worker placement game that is based in the Dungeons and Dragons universe, and Splendor, a set collection game that is set within the stern-looking royal person universe.
Gem dealers.
Gem dealers, that's what it is.
I can't believe you don't know that. It's dripping with theme, is that game. Dripping with theme. It's Marvel universe if you've got the Marvel Splendor, which I have, because I'm pretty special. Yes, shall I go first, Mike?
Dan, why don't you go first? I've taken it down so now people can, have some time to adjust to looking at your face again.
How rude. Now this, Mike, very much like a lot of your top tens, is the Battle of the Blands, in my opinion. Lords of Waterdeep is possibly the most by the numbers. It's almost it's almost a universal solvent for worker placement. It's your default setting for worker placement, isn't it? Or certainly has become that. And the reason it's a classic, that's why it's become a classic. And Splendor is almost the default basic for an engine building game as well.
Yeah.
So you've got two default basics here. So part of me is kind of thinking, well, which system do I prefer more? Which kind of mechanic do I prefer more? Do I prefer engine building or worker placement? Lords of Waterdeep does, and this is a ridiculous thing to say, Lords of Waterdeep does the theme better than Splendor. Do you not agree?
The black cubes and the orange, those are very, very evocative of rogues and fighters. Definitely.
Yeah. But
theme is not forward in either of these games.
No, but the board looks better, and
it does.
Yeah. Theme is not forward. So, but I do like a good engine builder, and I like the satisfaction of an engine builder and how it builds on itself and how it makes you feel clever and things like that. Whereas Lords of Waterdeep can do that as well, and I like the way that kind of almost accelerates and things. So there's a good acceleration pace to both of these. It's quite a hard matchup, actually. Yep. But I'm going to go with Splendor just because I know a lot of people don't like Splendor, and I want to irritate them. So I think it's a very close match here, but I think Splendor wins it for me.
Yeah, this one is a little bit close. Not as close for me as it is for you. I didn't struggle as much with this one. And it's interesting, I think you brought up probably why it was a little bit easier for me, because I also looked at this as which mechanic do I prefer? And I do tend to prefer worker placement games over engine building games, just generally speaking. Also, I think that Lords of Waterdeep, the thing that it has going almost against it in an odd way is the theme, because it is such an approachable worker placement game. I think there are some people that might be a little bit put off by the Dungeons and Dragons theme.
I think you're right. I think that at the time it was released, gaming was a lot less mainstream, I think.
Yeah.
And probably it fit better in the gaming milieu, Flavian, than it does now.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of almost a niche product, but at that point it was quite mainstream almost.
Right. But so that's the only thing, because otherwise I think it is a very, very good entry-level worker placement game. It's not my favorite entry-level worker placement game, but it's up there. It's still, I think it still holds up. In a previous episode of this show, we talked about Stone Age, and I always have preferred Lords of Waterdeep to Stone Age.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, and the other thing is, I don't know if you know this, but frequently they call Lords of Waterdeep a Splendor killer. And so that's what I'm going with. Lords of Waterdeep is my choice. You went with Splendor, Dan, and so that means that right away, it's time for Chat VSL, and we're going to find out. Oh, I don't have my sound effects.
This is a disgrace. You've had a month to sort this out, Mike. Come on. We don't want the air horn.
Well, I'm looking for up here in my...
Absolute travesty. He's a professional lady. He gets paid for this.
All right,
it's absolutely ridiculous. I've never worked with such incompetent... Look at him peering through his glasses.
Sound effects. Well, There we go. Okay, so we chose the which one did we choose? The air horn annoyed people. The DJ air horn annoyed people. Let's go with this. I'm going to go with the official sound for Chat VSL is going to be a glockenspiel. Everyone loves a glockenspiel, Dan.
Like a Windows opening thing, right? Okay, it's coming. Are you ready? Ready to press the button?
Yep. There we go.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I still think some like an old-fashioned modem loading. That's what it needs.
I know. I need to look this up. Yeah.
Anyway, what am I doing? Well, of course, we all know that this stupid AI is always biased towards you.
That's right, baby.
And so, if I'm right, yeah. It agrees with you. Lords of Waterdeep, it says, is better than Splendor.
That is fantastic.
Splendor killer.
I am locking in the Splendor killer, Lords of Waterdeep.
I'm not even that bothered. I think it was too hard a choice for me. I'm not bothered between those two. I think they're equally as good, in my opinion.
I think what I need to do is find where I put Lords of Water. There it goes. Okay. All right. We have our next matchup, Dan. Are we ready?
I'm ready.
We've got Underwater Cities and Catan. Underwater Cities and Catan.
You kick this one off, Mike.
All right. Here we go. Underwater Cities. See, this is a tricky one because this is coming from two very distinct eras in gaming. And I think that they both represent the eras in which they were released pretty well. Mm-hmm. And here's what I'm getting at. Underwater Cities is I think would be called a medium weight or medium heavyweight game.
Medium heavy, surely.
Yeah. There's a lot going on. It's from a designer that I like a lot of their games, Vladimir Suchi. But this one is right on the edge of being too much for me. I appreciate the design a lot, but it is right on the edge of feeling like we are putting in almost everything in the kitchen sink. Okay, it has a really clever card play system. My favorite part of Underwater Cities is the card play, where you're trying to play them, you're trying to match the cards with particular colors to get kind of combo-y stuff going on. I like that. Where it loses me a little bit is on the board, where you are building out these biomes and you've got to kind of, it's just like one or two things too much is my issue with Underwater Cities. Catan is showing his age. It really is. It has the issue of negotiation, which can be tricky if you have people that don't really want to negotiate or don't feel comfortable with that aspect of the game. It can be, it kind of drags. It probably is a little long for what it's doing as well. But I'm going to go with Catan on this one, Dan. I'm actually going to go with Catan on this one because I think Underwater Cities, again, is a little bit too much. It feels a little bit more than what it should be for me.
I usually would agree with you in a lot of heavy games. I get very irritated by everything in the kitchen sink, but I think Underwater Cities is actually quite elegant. I do get what you're saying about the placing the biomes and things, but they just get you extra gubbins. It's not an entirely almost separate game going on there, which is often what I disagree with various tracks and things like that on Lisboa and all that kind of stuff. There's like 12 games. It's like buying one of them family packs of Ludo, chess, snakes and ladders and all and playing them all simultaneously at the same time is those heavy games. So I think for medium heavy games, Underwater Cities just about hits my sweet spot. I think that's about as heavy as I'm willing to go.
Okay.
But I find it delicious. It delicious, and that card play and stuff like that is just wonderful. So I really like it. I'd even call it a Splendor killer.
Well, we may get a chance to do that later. Yeah.
So Catan is good. It's solid. It's been the entry point for many people. I think it's unfairly criticised,
maligned
by some who kind of almost put it in the same camp as Monopoly, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's still a game with. I just think it's showing its age, but it's still a game with legs. You can still have a good game of Catan and enjoy it. It
Absolutely.
Was shown in the cinema. I don't know if you're aware of this, but adverts for Catan was in the cinema and last last 2 times I went to the cinema. It was shown in the D&D movie, and once in the Mario movie. So they're obviously still selling. Otherwise, Otherwise, it wouldn't thing. So I think, as an entry-level game, I think it was great back then, but I don't think it's good now. I think you want Splendor or Wards of Waterdeep, if I'm absolutely honest, for a welcoming game. So anyway, I'm going with Underwater Cities. So that's another tie.
Another tie, and I think my guess is this may be an unprecedented situation, Dan, where I think you may have Chat VSL on your side. I'm ready with the sound.
He's coming. Look at him.
There he is.
Look at that. He does say he's very keen. He's Chat VSL on Underwater Cities and less so on Catan. So
all right.
Sorry, I should do the voice. Underwater Cities wins my vote. There you go.
All right, here we go. Underwater Cities. So that may be the first time that Chat VSL has gone against me.
I'm feeling truly blessed. It's a monument. I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to crack open the champagne. I'm going to tell my wife. I'm going to sit her down and regale her with stories of this. And then she'll apply for that divorce.
Our next matchup, Dan, and you'll be going first on this one. We've got our first repeat. We've got Lords of Waterdeep and Chronicles of Crime. This is going to be... When I saw that we had Chronicles of Crime that we were going to be talking about, I was immediately thinking, okay, well, this is going to be interesting because you immediately are going to have a whole group of people that are adamantly opposed to the idea of any kind of technology being involved in their board games.
They do it by candlelight, Mike. They turn off all the electric lights. Right. They refuse to play on tables that weren't hewn from wood from the forest with hand tools.
Yes, they are hosting the Luddite Meeple podcast, but it's not one that actually goes out over the airways. It's just people sitting around a fire and
screaming into the void. Very much like our podcast, Mike.
Indeed.
Sporadically bored.
Did not win the Golden Geek Podcast Award.
4 times loser of the Golden Geek Podcast Award.
And that is correct.
Nominated.
Yes.
So, what was I saying? Oh yeah, Chronicles. The thing about apps, though, Mike, is they do go. I've had games. I've got 2 games now. Life of George, which is a fantastic game I can no longer play because of the app's gone, and now Dropmix disappeared.
That's true. Yeah.
So it does matter. However, I had lovely times playing both those games and wrung lots of enjoyment, and I've definitely got my money's worth. So I don't mind apps in games.
Okay.
And let's face it, nothing's forever.
No.
So Chronicles of Crime. I normally get a little bit irritated with deduction games. I certainly don't like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective because of all the reading and things like that. But Chronicles of Crime, I really enjoyed. I think it really replicates that feeling of a whodunit thing much better than any of the ones where you have to flick through books and all that kind of stuff. And there is still a bit of reading to do, and you know, it'd be lovely if it was all read out. Is it all read out to you? I can't remember.
I don't think so. No.
I think the introduction's read out to you. I think, and even then it would be too slow, wouldn't it? You'd be skipping ahead all the time. Right. So, and the app works wonderfully. The only downside with Chronicles of Crime is that there's not, if you haven't got the Kickstarter version, there's not actually that many mysteries in the box. I can't remember how many there are, but I remember being a little bit just disappointed that I'd been through them all.
Yeah.
But the opposite side of that is it's a very cheap game.
It is.
And there are, so as I say, I got my enjoyment out of it. And the other game was Lords of Waterdeep. Yeah. And that is good, solid entry level. It was innovative at the time because not because it did anything new, but because it was quite elegant and simplified things, and it was so popular at the time. That box, though, what's going on there?
Terrible box. Yeah, not a fan of that box at all.
It looks nice, but you can't have it on your shelf.
Not functional at all, no.
Not functional. So I'm going with the Splendor Killer Chronicles of Crime for this one. All
right, well, tell Chat VSL to stay in his box because we're agreed on this one, Dan. I don't have a strong, opinion on the whole app and gaming thing. Other than I think the argument is oftentimes very silly. I think that there are times where the app integration is very good and definitely enhances the experience and also can create an experience that could not happen otherwise. And this is one of those examples. You could not really have what Chronicles of Crime does without an app. Or if you did, it would be so cumbersome that it would not be worth it. It would take any enjoyment out of it. And so what at first blush felt maybe gimmicky turned out to not really be gimmicky. It really was just a rock solid way of handling something that couldn't have been done otherwise. The one, I guess, argument you could make, and I think it's a valid argument with Chronicles of Crime, is that it is very close to walking a line of not really feeling like a board game.
You are right. However, I think the reason for that is because it's so strongly puts across its narrative.
I agree.
And board games have traditionally always struggled with narrative.
Yes.
And speaking as a board game designer of a game with narrative in it, it is a difficult thing to inject in because it can get in the way. You know what I mean? Especially if it's badly written, which obviously Core Quest isn't. But Chronicles of Crime, it certainly isn't badly written. I think it's really, really well written. So I think it straddles the line almost between being a board game and a book.
Yeah.
Bizarre.
Sure.
I mean,
and even a little bit of, depending on the people playing, could even have a little bit of role playing element in there as well, too. So
yeah. Although I don't agree, but yeah. Look, I don't think you know what role playing is, Mike. But other than that, you're right.
I'm gonna let that one sit, although you're incorrect. All right, so
you can role play in any game, I suppose.
I suppose, but I think some games are more.
Yeah, but the story can't react to what you're doing, can it?
It can when I'm playing. It can when I'm playing, Dan.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Ah, interesting.
Also, there is a promo card of me in Chronicles of Crime, so that immediately gets it the win. All right, so we can go to that one. Chronicles of Crime over Lords of Waterdeep. Okay, here we go. Chronicles of Crime is up again, Dan, and I'll go first this time. It's going up against Underwater Cities. Chronicles of Crime and Underwater Cities. So this is a tricky one because these games could not be, they could be less alike, but it would be hard. They are coming from very different design kind of places. They have very different weights. I know that was very eloquent of me.
It's wonderful. I'm constantly reminded of how come you're paid for this and I'm not. It's fantastic. Yeah, go on.
Well, okay. Again, there's so many things I want to say, and then I remember that we are on a family-friendly channel. Chronicles of Crime and Underwater Cities. So I kind of have already dug my hole here for this one with Underwater Cities. As it's a game, again, that I admire. I admire the design. And I like it. I think I rated it relatively highly. But I feel like as time has gone on, for myself as a gamer, I'm finding myself more and more drawn, and this could be just a cyclical thing. You know, we all go through kind of cyclical elements in our gaming lives. And I am much more leaning towards the games where I feel like elegance is the key, and the depth does not come from the amount of things going on, but rather the depth of the decisions. And so Underwater Cities, for me, I think is a game that I am distancing myself from a little bit just because I feel like it's a little bit too much going on, again, for the experience that it looks to provide. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Chronicles of Crime, and I won't belabor the point.
Well, I get what you're saying. And I, too, have lent more simple as I've got older and more decrepit. However, I think the problem with Chronicles of Crime is I don't think it's a great multiplayer game. I think it's a lovely solo game. I don't think the enjoyment multiplies by two by having two people there. In fact, I think it detracts from it because you're having to discuss things. Fair enough. It'd be a good couples game. I can see that.
Yeah, I think it's good with two. I would take your argument if you're talking about four and yeah.
Yeah, but 3 and 4, I think it gets it just bogs down really. Whereas Underwater Cities I played with 2, and I think actually to be fair, I think that's probably what it plays best at. That's my most enjoyment. But I played with more as well, and that was great. Which isn't the sole reason for me picking Underwater Cities, but speaking of killers, I would much rather play Underwater Cities than Terraforming Mars. It scratches the same kind of itch for me that. Again, it's an engine building type thing, isn't it? It's kind of building yourself up and accelerating and feeling clever because you've put various combos in place and this is going to work with that and all that kind of stuff. And then you've got the different coloured cards and all the interesting decisions around there. And I agree, as I said to you before, I agree with you that often heavy games get too bogged down in elegance.
Yeah.
But I don't think Underwater Cities is really fair to accuse it of that.
I wouldn't call it inelegant. That's fair. I would not call it inelegant. It's just a little too much going on for me at this point. What it gives you.
Which is fine. You know, you know, not quite as clever as me. So it is difficult for you to enjoy games on the same level. You just like the bright shapes and colours.
I do. I do. Yes.
Putting those little starfish in your mouth and things.
They're delicious.
Yeah. But whereas I like it on a deeper, more profound level than you. So for that reason, I'm going with Underwater Cities, I'm afraid.
Now, this is one that I'm very interested in because I don't have a strong sense on where chat VSL is going to come through on this one. This to me, this could be a toss-up. I just don't know.
We'll see. Are you ready with your Glockenspiel?
Oh, I'm ready.
Dan is once again correct. Underwater Cities is the superior game. Ha ha, how do you like them apples, Mike DiLisio?
I don't like them.
It's getting a bit abusive.
A little bit. All right, Underwater Cities gets the win there. Here we go. Chronicles of Crime, Dan, and Catan. Chronicles of Crime and Catan. That's our matchup for now.
I think this is where we speed up a little bit, isn't it?
Yes.
Because
we've covered these.
Because we've talked about both of these things. For me, there's no contest here. Chronicles of Crime is a far superior game to Catan. It feels more modern. It feels more elegant. It feels more. You can't really compare them. They're not the same kind of games. But if you put both in front of me and ask which do you want to play tonight. Saying that if there was 4 of us, I might not go for Chronicles of Crime. I might go for Catan, to be honest. But I'm still saying Chronicles of Crime. So Chronicles of Crime.
This one is tough, Dan. This one is really tough because just on the basis of the design in today's world, it's hard not to see the age on Catan, but I don't know. I mean, it's still being played by thousands and thousands of people. It is the game that got me into the hobby.
Yeah, but so is Candyland. That's no reason to give.
I think comparing Catan and Candyland is a little bit ingenuous there, Dan. I don't think that Catan.
That's what it is.
Well, if we're talking ingenious, that's a different game. That's Reiner Knizia, and that would win. I'm going to go with Catan here, Dan. This one is a little bit of an emotional pick. Because this is a game I feel like the importance to the hobby cannot be understated, and it is still a game that I would play. So I'm going to go with Catan. So chat VSL, I think we're going to give Dan 3 in a row here.
Yes, you are clearly an idiot because Chronicles of Crime is superior to Catan.
Shocking.
You need to, come on, be polite.
All right, here we go. And I guess I think I'm starting this one.
I'm practicing to become a ventriloquist.
Well, keep practicing, Dan. Lords of Waterdeep. Lords of Waterdeep and Catan. Lords of Waterdeep and Catan. And here's where I'm going to break right away from what I just said. It's Lords of Waterdeep for me because these games are much closer in the experience that they're trying to provide than Catan and Chronicles of Crime. And so for this experience, the years have brought us a little bit more in I'm going to go with Lords of Waterdeep on this one.
Not that many years, though, is it?
Not that many, honestly, yeah.
I would guess that there's the same distance between. I mean, I've got nothing to back this up, but guess
clearly,
there's the same
like
distance
most of your
between
arguments,
Catan and Lords of Waterdeep as Lords of Waterdeep to now. There's no human possible way of working that out.
No,
so we'll just have to.
We'll have to get chat VSL on that. So I'm going with Lords of Waterdeep, Dan.
I am also going with Lords of Waterdeep. And this isn't to poo-poo Catan at all. Wasn't that
I'll trade you 3 sheep for poo-poo.
I think Poo-Poo Catan was a glam rock track, wasn't it? By Sweet.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Poo-Poo Catan. All right, here we go. We have we both went with Lords of Waterdeep there. All right.
Yeah.
Catan and Splendor. Catan and Splendor. And I think you're starting this one off, Dan.
See, these are really tricky. I wish because even though I said I wanted Splendor over Lords of Waterdeep, I'm now tempted to pick Catan over Splendor.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on there?
I don't know, Dan. What is going on?
Inconsistency. That's what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
I think both these games get a bum deal from the elite.
Yeah.
Of gaming. I think they've both got a lot to offer. Splendor, there's a strategy with Splendor that once you know it.
Yep.
And I'm not going to say it here because it kind of spoils the game for you,
right?
For a lot of people. So I'm not calling it broken, but I wish it was just that strategy was a little less dominant.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go full on contradictory and say Catan, even though that makes no logical sense. So I apologise to my many fans out there who may be disappointed at this, but no, I'm going to go Catan. And there's a trading in Catan. It's more interactive, is Catan.
It is,
and it's more exciting in a way because of the dice rolls and things like that. So it's got the dice rolls, which make things exciting. It's got trading with a bit of interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Yet it's still got the thinkiness of planning and things like that. So it's got all the hallmarks of a great game, and it is a great game. So I'm going to go for Catan.
Well, Dan, if there's one thing that I know about Catan, it's that it is the Splendor killer. I am also going to be going with Catan, and so Catan over Splendor. Oh boy! And the people right now can see, Dan. They can see what the final. And actually, honestly, I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted with this. I blame this squarely on you. This is a shocking result, and I frankly will not stand for it. So, Dan, get your rankings here ready, and I had it up, and I'll bring it back up here. So, starting from number 5, Dan, we have Splendor.
Splendor, yep.
At number 4, we've got Catan.
Catan, the Splendor killer, yep.
At number 3, we've got Lords of Waterdeep.
Lords of Waterdeep, the Splendor killer, yep.
At number 2, we've got Chronicles of Crime.
The Splendor killer. This never gets old.
Never gets old. Never. And then at number 1, amazingly, is Underwater Cities. So I blame that solely on you. And now, to be clear, I like Underwater Cities. I really do. But I'm very surprised. And I'm going to pull that list back up again, and I'm going to guess, Dan, that because the last time we did this, our ranking and the people's ranking was not terribly off, but I feel like we're going to have a much bigger disparity this time than we did last time.
I'll give you the people's ranking if that's what you want.
Well, that's what I want, Dan. That's what the people are waiting for.
That's what I'm going to do then, Mike.
That's the payoff for this whole show.
Okay. Number 5 of the people's ranking was Catan. Number 4 was Chronicles of Crime.
Okay.
Number 3 was Splendor. Number 2 was Underwater Cities. And number 1 was Lords of Waterdeep.
All right. Okay. Well, we have redone those.
Re-ranked that. We definitely did a bit of re-ranking there, man.
We did some re-ranking there, and again, this is exhausting work. I'm really torn because I feel like you, quite frankly, ruined this entire endeavor. But other than that, we've done some very important work here. We've restored the natural order of things to the People's Choice Top 100.
Had their wishes roughshod trodden over on the past 2 episodes of this so-called show, that I feel just vindicated. To be fair, Under What Cities is in my top 10 games of all time.
So there was you had an agenda. So clearly you came into the show with an agenda, and you were going to push that agenda forward no matter what. Now everything becomes clear.
Yeah. Well, you mean if by that you mean I was going to come into the show and say Under What Cities was a good game, and you were completely correct. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, Dan, again, I know that I don't know about you, but I get many pieces of correspondence every day thanking me. Specifically me, actually. They don't mention you very often, if ever, but they thank me for the important work that I do on this show and for kind of giving them, a restored sense of order in the universe. When things in this topsy-turvy world of ours, Dan, a lot of times people really want to have a sense of order, and I feel like that's what I do here, at least.
I've had a little bit of an inkling that this year I'm going to be mentioned in the New Year's Honours list and might even get a knighthood for my services to board gaming. There'll be me, Sir Dan Hughes, and there's Sir Ian Livingstone, who founded Games Workshop, and we'll be the gaming knights. And purely because of this charity work I'm doing here, this outreach work with the unfortunate, that I'm donating my time to the destitute board game media. I don't know what I call you. Creator's a bit strong, isn't it? Really,
it's a bit strong, Dan. Yeah,
a bit strong. I've got nowhere. Quick, rescue me, Mike. I've got no idea where I'm going to go with.
Dan, let me throw you this life vest and just thank everyone for watching. And we're going to be back, Dan. We're going to be back with 5 more games sooner than you'd like. We're going to be back with 5 more games in the Dice Tower's People's Choice Top 100, and we will rank them. And at some point, we'll run through this whole list, and then we're going to have to come up with some other paper-thin conceit to get together and talk to each other.
How dare you? Also, I don't know if this is... Because no one ever tells me anything, I don't know if this will ever see the light as an individual video.
Who knows, Dan? Maybe.
Who knows? I'm sure it'll see the light somewhere, basically. So put your comments below what order you would put them in.
That's right, Dan.
Because we are interested to know. And we'll have a look at them, and we'll pour... Internally, we'll say, "Oh, good list," and then internally, we'll judge you. We'll judge you for your rubbish-tasting games.
That's correct. We will deride you and all of your choices.
We'll be messaging each other, going, "Ha ha ha! See what this Marcus Brisman put? What a fool!"
Let me just put it to you this way, Dan. The poop emoji was going to get a lot of use. A lot of use. I'm just going to make that a shortcut on my phone. I'll have to ask somebody how to make a shortcut on my phone.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you again for watching another episode of FaceTime Face-Off. Until next time, I'm Mike DiLisio.
I'm Dan Hughes.
And we will see you on the next one. Folks, boy, that's a whole lot of Dan Hughes to take at one time. I applaud you. I applaud all of you for making it through that much Dan Hughes. I have to deal with that on a pretty regular basis. I have to deal with that much Dan Hughes on a regular basis, but you clearly don't have to, and so I want to applaud you on making it through. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I've got another 37 minutes or so, I'd love to end things up with a Q&A. There needs to be an idiot hole emoji. Wow. Be careful what you ask for. I'm sure someone could be working on that. So, if you've got any questions that you would like to ask me, I'm here to be as elusive as I possibly can be. I'm going to dodge your questions as fast as I can. You can't pin your questions on me. But I'll give you a few minutes, seconds, minutes, whatever, to catch up to the live stream here, and we'll take a look at some questions. That was 2.5 as much times forehead. I'm going to say that the 0.5 was Dan. I'll take 1. I'll take 1 times forehead, but the 1.5, that's going to Dan. 100% that's going to Dan. I won't take it. All right, here we go. Our first question. I'd love to know your thoughts on Thunder Road Vendetta. Yeah, I was very disappointed that I was not able to be in the studio for that review because obviously I played in the live play of that not long ago. The short answer is this. It's fantastic. I absolutely loved it. It seems like it does exactly what it set out to do. It is a raucous, ridiculous dice chucking frenzy, and I'm here for it. I loved it. I may put that in a rapid fire roundup later on. Oh, Nick. You ready for the glamour of the Dice Tower Midwest Annex? You know what was for dinner tonight? And I'm gonna say, look, this is not typical, but this is what I had for dinner tonight. I had 2 peanut butter and jelly English muffin sandwiches. That's exactly what I had. I had 2 English muffins that I toasted, peanut butter, but it was an exciting jelly, Nick. An exciting jelly. This wasn't just your standard Smucker's grape or jelly or strawberry. No, this was Gator Jam. It's a delicious, it was some type of a citrus something or other. We got this jelly at the, before we moved here, there was a garlic festival in Miami. And we went there, and the garlic stuff wasn't very exciting, but this jelly was very good. Okay. Have I been enjoying Final Girl Series 2? Still need to try it out, Pip says. Yes, I've been enjoying it very much. Now, I have not gone through every scenario. I've not gone through every one of the killers. I haven't gone through every one of the Final Girls. But what I've played, I've really enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to diving into the rest of that. Where would you rank Yucatan with the lineup with Kemet and Inish, etc.? You know, I'm not going to be able to answer this very well because I played it as a prototype, a year ago? I really don't remember it a whole lot. And I saw it at a game store recently. And I looked at the back and I'm like, okay, yeah, I kind of remember. And then I went back and I looked through a few minutes of the playthrough to kind of remind myself a little bit. But look, I haven't played it enough. I've played Kemet a lot. Inish less, but still more than the one time I played Yucatan. So I have a gut feeling it's not going to be mentioned in the same breath as those 2 games. I could be completely wrong, but I just have a feeling. Best game of the year so far. This is a tricky proposition, Kyle. I don't know that I want to be definitive on this. I will tell you that Earth is up there, right? Earth is going to be, I gave it a 10, right? So Earth is going to be in the mix. I'll put it to you that way. Jeff, how's it going, Jeff? Have you played? He declared it. Have you played the Beyond the Sun solo expansion yet? I have not. I'm not disinterested, but I am kind of wondering for that design how the solo is going to work. But yeah, I'll check it out if I get a chance. Have you completed Legacy of You? Do you mean have I gone through? I'm assuming you mean have I gone through an entire campaign yet? No, I'm really close. Really close. And I've lost a lot. All right. How am I doing? Pretty good. Doing pretty good. Pretty good. Do you have any regular nights where you play games at friendly local game stores or anything? I'm about an hour from you and would be fun to game with you as a fellow big Chip Theory Games fan. So Josh, I Regular nights is where it gets tricky. I have a number of friends and groups that get together. They get together pretty regularly. My attendance is less regular. I try to get, I first of all, to be able to do this job, I need to be playing games, clearly. And so I get together relatively regularly with different groups of people. But I don't have a standard every single Tuesday I go here, every Friday I go here type of a thing. But yeah, if you're that close, hopefully we can get together and play a game sometime. Nick, what was the worst car you've ever owned or driven? So I've had a lot of junkers in my time. Let me tell you, I have had a lot of really, really crappy cars. One of the first car that I bought with my own money, it almost sounds like I'm making it up. I paid $200 cash for it. And I know that everyone jokes that I'm old, and I'm not a spring chicken by any means, but even at the time that I was paying for this car, $200 was nothing. So this car was clearly trash, right? It was a 1970 or something Plymouth Valiant, okay? And it was a car that had a 3 on the tree automatic transmission, where you basically, it was like on your steering wheel, you had the transmission there. And then it had air shocks in the back. The car had literal air shocks for the back of the car that you pumped up. You could pump up with a ball pump, like a hand pump. It had a little thing you'd unscrew, just like on a bike tire or something, and you'd pump the back, and the back of the car would eventually go up. So that car did not last long. Do you ever plan or hope to return to the main studio one day, or are you aiming for the Annex to be permanent? Well, I guess it depends on what exactly you're asking, David. I'm going to be going back, and I have been already back to the studio for a spectacular. So I'm going to be periodically going back to Miami and Homestead for, spectaculars, and I'm going back down for obviously the Dice Tower East. I'll be in Orlando for that. I'm going to be at the retreats, things like that. So I'll be there for those types of things. Now, as far as going back on a permanent basis, look, never say never. I obviously really love this job, and I am very much missing the camaraderie and the people and being able to interact with them live in the studio. That's a huge thing that I'm missing. But coming here for the reasons I did, obviously family related, that's not going to necessarily be a forever thing, right? So my need to be here is not going to be, years and years and years. So the short answer is maybe, right? That's the best I can tell you at this point, is maybe. We'll see. Will you be at Gen Con? Oh, you better believe it. That's now my hometown con again, right? I'm not far away from Gen Con at all. And so I'm kind of doing some logistical work here for the Dice Tower team. I'm going to be doing some practical matters because I'm able to, be here locally. Hey, Liz, can we get more live from the Midwest Annex? Well, hey, I'm happy to do it. Happy to do it. So far, things are going okay, right? I mean, I don't want to anger the vagaries of technology and jinx anything, but so far things have gone okay. I still, believe it or not, I'm still working out some technology things to be able to do more of what I'd like to do, because I'd like to, certainly be able to do live gameplays and stuff of solo games, or even have people over and play games. But there's a couple of camera issues I'm dealing with that are being worked on. But short answer is yes. I hope that I know we'll do more live stuff from here. No question about it. The frequency I'm not positive of yet. Okay. What's your next solo review going to be? Oh, Peter, I don't know. I don't have specifically a solo review that's on the schedule yet. The next couple of games that I'm reviewing are multiplayer games, but I'm not going to I'm not giving up on solo game reviews by any means. I just don't know specifically what the next one might be. Someone else had toasted English muffins with peanut butter for dinner. Yeah, look, I'm not going to lie, it was delicious. It was delicious. Opinions on 51st State. I played the 51st State Master Set. It's been a while. I remember liking it. I remember thinking it was pretty cool. Seeing the similarities with, Imperial Settlers. Some similarities, but also some significant differences. I like it. I certainly, it's not up there like it is with Z. I do think it's a good game, but I don't own it. But I enjoyed it. You're baiting me, man. You are baiting me here. How ridiculous was it that Resist did not win Solo Game of the Year and Turing Machine did for the BGG Awards? Okay. I gave Turing Machine a 4, so my thoughts on that game are clear. But I also made it clear in that review that I don't think it's a bad design. I think it's a bad game for me. Don't like it. Don't like it at all. That being said, I get the sense that it really is a solo game, right? I know you can play it because I've played it multiplayer. I don't think it gains anything multiplayer over a solo game. So I think it's fair that it was in the solo gaming category. I think it probably would be best as a solo game. But Resist blows Turing Machine out of the water. Blows it out of the water as a solo design. Turing Machine, I think, is a neat... it has some really neat mechanical and production things going on, right? Like it's like, oh, it's cool that it can do that. But for an experience, Resist blows it out of the water. Why do I do this to myself? I know that when I do something like the forehead, I'm going to be hearing about it for the next 3 years. All right. Have you played Andromeda's Edge yet or still avoiding it? I have not played it, but I'm not avoiding it now. Now I'm getting a copy of it, and I'm very much looking forward to it. But I have not played it yet. I've been offered, but this usually have been over TTS, and I don't really necessarily want to. The first time I play it, I want it to be a production, or not even a production, but a physical copy. I did have a chance to play a physical copy, but the timing didn't work out. Okay. Will there be a contest to rename the Annex once you've settled in? We want to rename it? I like the Dice Tower Midwest Annex. I mean, I don't know. I like that. I mean, I think it's snappy. It rolls off the tongue. I mean, if you've got better ideas, I'm open, but... Oh, man. My favorite Death May Die scenario? I don't know. I know it's not one with the fire. I hate the fire. Earth is overrated. Move to Mars. Terraforming Mars. Hey, terraforming Mars is fine. I'll pick Earth every single time over terraforming Mars, though. If you're asking me which of these two games do you want to play, it's going to be Earth every time. I understand the comparison. I don't think they have, I'm sure I've made that comparison before, but I like Earth much, much, much more than terraforming Mars. How is the game designing with Dan going? It's going well. We have done some play testing here recently. I say we, but I should say Dan. Dan came up with a neat little hook, a scoring hook that we both have liked quite a bit. Well, I'll give myself a little credit too. He came up with a neat scoring hook. I came up with a little tweak to make it a little bit easier to score in-game scoring. So we're both pretty happy with where it's going. We're kind of in a bit of a holding pattern, waiting for some art assets and things along those lines. Just played Earth with the Brothers Murph. That kind of rhymes. That's cool. Those guys are fun to play games with. Did you play live or over TTS or? What's the secret to look so handsome and healthy? Well, I don't know that I would have had an answer for that up until about 10 minutes ago. I'm going to say the answer is peanut butter and jelly English muffin sandwiches. That's the secret. Thank you for being very, very kind words here. I appreciate it. People talking about the Sherpa seat. I have not backed the Sherpa seat. I'm glad someone caught that was a Curb Your Enthusiasm reference. I have not played Hegemony yet. I know Tom, Joey, big fans of it. It intimidates me a little bit, if I'm being quite honest. I'll play it, but I'm not kind of going out of my way. What was the last game you bought for your own personal collection? I just showed it off in my top 10 earlier. I got this and this delightful little card game by Bruno Catala and Théo Rivière. I just got those in today. Where would you rank Steve Martin on the list of all-time funny people? Way up there. Way up there. I think that Steve Martin is brilliant. I think that he is maybe best as a writer. I think his best attribute in comedy is as a writer. I think he's a brilliant comedic writer. Honestly, my least favorite aspect of Steve Martin as a comedian is his stand-up. I think he's fine at stand-up, at least his early stand-up. I'll put it to you that way. I think his more recent stand-up is closer to what I like, which is just him being more conversational. Like him with Martin Short right now. It's great. But yeah, he's brilliant. What is the volume of the Caspian Sea? I mean, I guess it depends on the weather. When the seas are, it's got to be pretty loud. When you're up, and also you're distanced from it. I mean, if you're a mile and a half away, you can probably barely hear the Caspian Sea. But if you're right there, like right on the edge of it, it's probably very, very loud, I would think. But I've never been, unfortunately. Ever play the solo game Deep Space D6? I have. It's been a long time, though. It's been a long time since I played it. Any chances of a DiLisio factor in the near future? That's the hope. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on camera-wise. Did you get into solo gaming more by choice or out of necessity? I'm finding for me it's more because of lack of regular playing partners. So I've kind of answered this question before, so I won't go into a tremendous amount of detail. But the short version is that it was originally more out of a sense of I was new in the hobby, heavy into the acquisition phase, buying a bunch of games, thinking, oh, this person like this person would like this would be good for the group, this would be good for the group. And then there's too many games to get played. And my shelves getting full, me getting anxiety about unplayed games, looking at them, realizing that some of them say that they play one player, literally didn't even understand the idea behind that, started checking them out. It was like, oh, I can actually play a lot of these games. And then I just found that I really enjoyed it. Do you miss marble races as much as we do? Marble races is tricky, Nick. Well, first of all, if they do them again, I wouldn't be able to be a part of it. And that doesn't mean they shouldn't do them again, clearly. But marble races were exhausting. They were really exhausting. But they were fun. I have not played Earth Solo yet. I have a copy of it right there. But I haven't played it solo yet. I've only played it multiplayer, which is crazy. But I will. I will play it solo. Are you going to Essen this year? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know yet. I haven't talked to Tom specifically about what the plans are regarding Essen. So I'm not sure. Not sure. I did go for the first time last year, and it was a spectacular experience. Just amazing. A bucket list item for me, 100%. Ever get up to my neck of the woods, Fort Wayne or Auburn? I've been through Fort Wayne, but I don't typically go there. It's just, yeah, it's not an area I actually go very often. What's your opinion on Sam's new channel? What little I've seen so far is great. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, Sam is a unique and kind of singular voice, right? No one really does what Sam does. And so I think it's awesome that he's kind of putting his own stuff out there again. Any chance we can get the Dice Tower crew at the Midwest Annex around Gen Con? Look, anything could happen. I don't know. They're certainly welcome. I don't know what we would do, but yeah, well, never know. Never know. Gosh, I don't know how far behind I am, but have you tried the Dwellings of Eldervale expansions like the castles yet? I have not. I'm planning to, actually. Somebody very kindly at Dice Tower West gave me some 3D printed pieces for the expansions, the castles, and the one other one I can't remember, but I haven't tried them yet. Okay, just kind of. Can you demo for us or explain how you get Final Girl out of your Calyx Cube? This is going to freak people out like that. Yeah, I pull on it a little bit. Is it the best thing for the box? Probably not. I don't know. I don't think it's a huge issue. There we go. Am I into fragrances? If so, what is my signature scent? I guess the short answer is no, because I don't really wear cologne regularly. I've worn cologne over the years. I'm not anti-cologne. I like to think that I keep myself smelling well without, but I'm very conscious of my own scent. So I don't know, honestly. I don't have a favorite. Any games you're excited about being released at Gen Con? I mean, tons, but I'd have to look at the list to kind of remind myself what is getting released there. And I'm sure there's things I don't even know about yet that I will learn about and be very excited about. Any chance a cat will make an appearance? Well, the answer is no, because Pip and Raven are banned from entering the studio. They made it abundantly clear the first day that I put up the acoustic tiling in the room to dampen some of the ambient sound, the echoing and such, that wasn't going to happen. If they're in the room, they're going to be messing with the acoustic tiling, and it's going to drive me insane. So the cats have been banned. Now, the problem is that we've got particular door handles. They're not the round handles, they're the handle handles. And the larger cat, Pip, learned that he can just go up and pull it down and open the door. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I can't tell you how happy I was to figure that out. This is a cat that is not the sharpest tool in the shed, but he figures out how to get in this room to mess with my stuff. So now I've got to keep the door locked at all times. But I'm not upset. It doesn't bother me at all. It's all fine. I love my cats, but my goodness, they drive me crazy sometimes. Have I played Distilled? Yeah, I played it live on the channel. I believe I played it with Bonacor and maybe one or two other people, maybe Chris. Great game. I like it a lot. I don't have a copy. I haven't played the final production copy, but the prototype we played on was terrific. Ooh. Favorite album to listen to front to back. There's a few that I think are, kind of like perfect albums, like no bad song on there. So probably Sugar, Copper Blue is the one that comes to mind. Bob Mould of Husker Du, and so Sugar, Copper Blue, Killing Joke, Pandemonium. Looks at phone, tries to make sure he doesn't miss obvious stuff here. Trying to think of, front to back. Gosh. See, this is hard. This is so hard. There's so many good albums. I might just stick with those because otherwise I'll be sitting here all day kind of going through all my albums. I mean, Pixies Trompe le Monde, maybe. There's so many good albums. Okay. How difficult is it to keep energetic and entertaining when you're the only one in the room chatting with those goofballs? Thank you for the kind words. It's not hard. I mean, I guess it's this kind of weird thing where I'm talking to my computer screen, but I'm very aware that, there are people on the other end. And I do kind of feel that. And so it kind of helps keep my energy up. And the fact that everyone here is so amazing in the chat makes it easier as well. Ten-year-old fan Hayden wants to know your favorite of the games you have given a 10. Trevor, I'm going to have to go with Dwellings of Eldervale. Yeah, Dwellings of Eldervale is my favorite game that I've rated a 10. I haven't rated a lot of games a 10. I rated Earth a 10, and who knows, that could be a contender if the more I play it. But as of right now, I'm sticking with Dwellings of Eldervale. Plus, it has monsters. Have you played Archaeo Society, the new version of Ethnos? Nope. I was talking about a little bit earlier in my top 10 with Paulo Mori. I have not played it. Looking forward to it, though. I don't know if they got a copy in the studio yet. Oh. Oh, my goodness. Well, I doubt this is true, but being put in the company of the brilliant Norm Macdonald, rest in peace, is high praise indeed. Only Murders in the Building is a great show. Steve Martin, Martin Short, and the highly underrated as a comedic actress Selena Gomez. I'm very serious about this. I think she's a terrific comedic actress and was when she was a little kid on the Disney Channel shows. I feel like I need to jump towards the bottom. Did Tom send you any crumble cookies? He did not, Nick. And that is especially cruel because I'm the one that talked. I told him about crumble cookies. I'm the one that told him, hey, you need to check these things out. They're amazing. Okay, I'm going to scroll towards the bottom and see. Oh, okay, I'm not too far ahead. My goodness. So this is a nice way of me getting to do, put a humble brag up here. You were good at being enjoyable and reviewing games immediately. Thank you. But what do you think you've most improved on with your videos and or appearances? So I think what maybe I have improved upon is explaining why I like a particular game the way I do. Because what I've said for a while is that it's very hard for me to tell you if you're going to like a game, right? It's impossible, basically. But what I can do is tell you why I do or don't like a game. And if I'm doing that in a way that is understandable, then hopefully you can determine whether that's something that might apply to you as well. And so I think I've become a little bit more conscious of trying to tap into what works for me as a gamer and trying to explain that in a way that makes sense. That's what I hope I've gotten better at and still could certainly improve upon. Is that Cerebria behind you? I feel like I'm the only person that likes that one. It is Cerebria behind me, and I like it, but it's so hard to get it played. It is so hard to get it played. They were regular English muffins. Regular English muffins. Woohoo! Indecision. Loved them some Millefiori. I'm well aware, Thomas, of the crumble cookies in the Keystone shops. I'm also aware of the one that is within like 5 minutes of my house. Unfortunately aware. What did you miss the most about Indianapolis? This is going to sound trite, but it's the absolute truth. It's the people. Indy is a lovely city, right? It's got some great things going for it. But what I missed the most were the people that I came to know here. And so being able to interact more regularly with those people, that's not even counting my family. That's a given, right? But friends that I had made here over the years and have been able to spend a little bit more time with now. That's been the biggest thing. But outside of that, I would say it's not the weather. I'm sorry. I very, very much am not a fan of Midwest weather. The driving is a little bit more sensible here. Okay, I've got a couple more minutes because I want to make sure that I'm giving enough time to transition to the next stream. That's going to be coming up here. Let's see if I can get... Let's end with this one. What's your opinion on customizing game components, and have you ever done it? Generally speaking, I think it's cool. If it's a game that I really like, I am interested in it. However, I don't love it when a component, even if it's really neat, if it's a custom component, doesn't fit with the aesthetic for the rest of the game, right? So I'll use Scythe as an example, one of my favorite games. MeepleSource make these really cool wooden screen-printed meeples for Scythe, which I usually love screen-printed wooden meeples. But to me, they look completely incongruous with the rest of the game. So I don't like them for that. But generally speaking, I really do, I love cool blingy stuff, metal coins, all that kind of stuff. I'm all about it. All right, folks. Well, I'm going to wrap it up here just because I want to, again, make sure that, you know what? I'm going to take this right to 8:59, right? I want to get this as close as possible. Just as a reminder, tomorrow, I'm going to be back at noon to 3 here Eastern Standard Time for another 3-hour block. And I'm going to be doing top 10 deck builders, a live review of World Exchangers, and I'm going to play some Oink apps. All right? So I'm very much looking forward to hanging out with all of you again tomorrow. Stick around because, look, the Dice Tower never sleeps. I sleep. Dice Tower never sleeps. I'm going to say goodbye, and you stick around. In less than a minute, hop over to that next stream, and you check out what good stuff they got going for you. Until next time, this is Mike DiLisio signing off from the Dice Tower Midwest Annex.